Should be good. Should be good for a recording. Okay. So hopefully this is fine. I just want to do the actual recording so I don't have to, like, rip the whole recording, because downloading my recording takes, like, 2 hours. It takes as long as the videos are, so my download speed is not very good. But, so hopefully this doesn't, like, affect the bitrate. It shouldn't, but I'm just going to be keeping tabs on it in case it does. But anyway, what we're here tonight for, we are going to be doing a full set review of Game of Gods Reloaded. My thoughts on the cards, where they could be applicable, stuff like that, all that good stuff, and what decks, so on and so forth, like that I could potentially see them in. And then we can also go over the Wanderer bans, like at the end, or when I end up talking about Wanderer, because there are definitely some cards that like affect Wanderer in this set. So anyway, we'll get started with that. So we'll do this one. Excellent. Good. I just want to make sure everything is a-okay. Craft a deck blind. Like this. Close my eyes and craft the deck on untap. Make my way like that. They're all up on untap. I am aware. I have untap up here, by the way. There is something that I will be doing on that eventually. But so anyway, we're going to be using Force of Wind to go over all of these bad boys. And we're going to do it like this, so I can have 2 cards on my screen at once. I want 3 cards on my screen at once, but this seems a little too zoomed. Whatever, it'll have to do. James has yet to put in a next button, but I've already put in a request for such a feature. So hopefully in the future I'll have a next button to just filter through stuff. So how we're going to be going through this is how it is listed on the website. I might jump around based on what the cards do. I might have to unzoom this in based on what the cards we get are. Because some of them functionally work with certain other things, and we need to know what other things do in order to fully evaluate some of the cards. So... but anyway, we're going to be starting with light, and then they're just alphabetical outside of attribute. So it goes by attribute, and then it goes alphabetical. So we'll be starting with light, and then go through all the other colors. Okay. Starting off, we have a Flashing Smile. This card's very powerful. So a Flashing Smile is, you can see all the text there for you. Light, quick cast, draw a card, deals 300 multiplied by the number of cards in your hand. So even if you have 0 cards in your hand, Flashing Smile is always going to deal at least 300 to your opponent's board. It can never hit your opponent's board for 0. It has Force Resonance Genesis, which is Alice's Force Resonance. So if you're playing Alice, you have Force Resonance Genesis, or Force Command Genesis. And you get to pay light less to play this if you pay its cost with will produced by Regalia you control. Funnily enough, that is the least potent part of this card. And is honestly probably... You could probably not even, like, pretend... You could pretend that text isn't even there, for the most part, for Flashing Smile. Because I don't know if this is good enough to be played in Alice. However, what Flashing Smile is very good at being played in is it is playable in Lycian style decks, right? It is a 2-mana chant, therefore it is playable off of Lycian. And the other thing with that is Fieth Mage in general had a hard time dealing with J resonators. That deck just did not have a lot of J resonator like hate. So like if you think back to like Violet format, like when it was like Fieth Mage and Violet, not Violet format, but like when the 2 decks were Fieth Mage and Violet. The 7th hadn't come out yet. It was just Fieth Mage and just Violet. Those were like the only 2 like real decks. Otherwise, other variants of tag with 6 sages, right? The way that the decks dealt with Violet was through Flame of the Outer World, because that was like the only thing that could really hit Jays and it functioned well enough to that it killed Violet. They couldn't really respond to it. There's no way to like pre-pump Violet, like anything like that. So that was their primary hatred for J-Rulers. But that was because there was only one J-Ruler deck. And its main win con was not Violet itself. It was just an alternate win con. So you had an answer to the one-time thing that you had to deal with, but otherwise you did not have consistent answers to J-Rulers, which was a problem. Now, with Flashing Smile, you do have consistent answers to J-Rulers. A lot of the Scythe Mage deck is very like cyclical, like it will replace itself. So like Priscilla stuff will always replace itself whenever you use Big Show. Melfi replaces itself, etc., etc. Flashing Smile also replaces itself. The biggest hit or issue that a Flashing Smile might have is you lost value in Scythe Mage through playing the Lycians, right? The Lycians themselves were value negative. Technically, they were mana positive. They made you go mana positive, but they played value negative. And then it caused your counter spells to play value neutral. But you just got to play them for mana positive, right? So that was how Scythe Mage functioned, and that was why it was part of the best deck. It played up on mana so much. But it didn't really have good board wipes. The best board wipe that it was playing for like mirror matches and stuff like that, right, was the Valentina to steal people's boards. So now Flashing Smile functions as hitting both of the problems that Scythe Mage primarily dealt with. It had an issue dealing with wide boards, and it had an issue dealing with J-Resonators. Now you can deal with both, technically. If it gets pumped up high enough, like, you can't deal with it, right? But, like, if you take, for example, an average hand size is probably going to be about 3 to 4 cards for the most part. So Flashing Smile is going to deal 900 to 1200 damage, which deals with most things in the game. So Flashing Smile, potentially very good, specifically for Scythe Mage, which is still going to be a very prominent deck. I don't know if you play it outside of Scythe Mage. Again, this one less to play if you produce it with Will produced by Regalia or whatever. Maybe it's functional enough to play an Alice because Alice draws a whole bunch of cards, but I don't know if it's going to be worth it in other forms of decks. It is a very powerful card, like it is a board wipe, and it does replace itself, and it is instant speed. So it has a lot going for it in the light function. But we'll see what decks end up playing it, right? Like, this is very powerful for also, like, Carlina, yeah, for New Frontiers. It's just 2 mana. Your hand's going to be stacked anyway because you're only playing a card a turn. It replaces itself in Carlina, and you board wipe your opponent. It's a very good thing. Moving on. Fragment of Omniscient Power. This card is terrible. It's a singular white, quick cast draw card. If you're Alice and you spend a Will produced by Regalia to play this card, you draw 2 instead. There's only one card that allows your Regalias to produce mana, and that is Ayu, and that Ayu allows your Regalia to produce mana of any color, so you're more than likely not going to be using the Regalia mana on light cards if your deck has other cards that aren't light, right? Also, there are so many cards that just draw in Alice itself, you don't really need a value play, and Force of Will typically isn't good with pure value cards. They either have to give you an absolute absurd amount of value, like if this was like draw 3, maybe you would play it, or it would have to be like on a body, or it would have to do something else. So this card's just not that great. You can play it off of Charlotte, but it's just a draw 1, and there are other light 1 mana light chance that draw a card that you can play off of Charlotte. So is that Fiora on Flashing Smile? That is not Fiora on Flashing Smile, you idiot. These two. Alice enters the Game of Gods. So this is probably the weakest of the 4 Game of Gods, I think. I think it's tied with Shiva's for weakest, but Shiva's has like the highest ceiling. So, but Alice enters the Game of Gods is you pay 1, and you can pick an attribute to get a Regalia of the chosen attribute, and then draw a card. You cannot have Regalia of the same attribute, right? Like the whole idea is you typically only have 5 Regalia out at any one time. Target J-Resonator loses all abilities until end of turn. So it's a blank. Blanks are okay. The fact that it's also assigned to I'm so kind to my viewers. Only him. I'm only mean to him. I'm kind to everyone else, but he deserves it. So the fact that the blank is tied to a draw card, the best way to look at like Alice Enters the Game of Gods, it's very similar to Separation of Fates. Separation of Fates practically is just Alice Enters the Game of Gods of target J Resonator loses all abilities until end of turn and then draw a card. The choose an attribute like Extra Regalia, that's nice for Alice. However, even if you drawing the card is not reliant on the Regalia portion like fully resolving. So if you already have like, let's say, all 5 Regalia, like all 5 attributes of Regalia, and you choose Fire again or whatever, you won't get the Fire Regalia because you already have one, but you will still draw a card. So Alice Enters the Game of Gods functions as a blank with a draw card. It is effectively Separation of Fates for Alice, but it also has additional text for Alice. So in an Alice type deck, this is again good with something like Charlotte. Charlotte is a very powerful card with single light mana chance, right? Because it can just rip them from the sideboard. Is it good enough to be played in the main? Potentially. There are a lot of ways to gain Regalia. However, typically having all 5 doesn't really matter. So you don't really need to turbo out Regalia, if that makes sense. And then the needing to blank something in order to get full value off of Enters the Game of Gods isn't that valuable, and it's sometimes not even particularly relevant. The other issue with it is because you would need a target for it. If your opponent's not playing anything to target with it, you're never going to actually get it off. Blanking also doesn't deal with problems, right? So even if you blank something to get rid of a continuous effect or something like that, you still have to deal with that card eventually. So I believe it is the weakest of the 4 Game of Gods effects. However, it is strong for Alice in the sense of its utility and what it's good for. I expect you sideboard it in at least a 1 of for Charlotte. Main board, maybe 1, maybe 2. It really just depends on how much stuff you need to blank, but we're not really in a format where blanking is that powerful. We haven't been in a while. Anyway, moving on. Alice's Fantastic Trick. This one was not spoiled, so this was a new card. So it is a singular light mana. Yeah, you can choose to just play with the 1 mode, yeah. But then you're just, like, effectively cycling if you don't get the Regalia function. It's just, like, it's not worth it for the most part. This is kind of what I'm getting at. So Alice's Fantastic Trick, singular light mana, quick cast, destroy target non-magic stone entity your opponent controls if this is the second or subsequent spell you played this turn. So if it is the second or later spell you played this turn. Keep in mind, in Force of Will, spells are every card in the game, so it counts resonators. So, and then if it's the third or subsequent spell, players cannot chase to this card. So it's unchaseable destruction if you played 2 other cards before Alice's Fantastic Trick. And it does nothing if it's the first card you play, which is kind of funny. But a very good part of Alice's Fantastic Trick is, again, how it works with Charlotte. Because Charlotte counts as the first card you played, and you play it off of its effect, you do play the card, which means Alice's Fantastic Trick would be the second card you played that turn off of Charlotte. Charlotte now has a destroy target non-magic stone entity. So you can have a way to just rip out a destroy target non-magic stone entity in light, which I do not believe existed before. I'm 90% sure it did not exist before. We've had stuff like remove target darkness resonators, like other things like that, but I don't think we've ever had entity destruction in light, at least in the form of a 1 mana chant at instant speed. It being unchaseable if it's the third or later spell you played this turn makes it a lot more powerful in the later stages of the game, especially with Alice, because of how many cards Alice draws. You're going to be playing a lot of stuff. So Fantastic Trick is a very powerful card, is a very good card. Would you main like if you're playing Charlotte, right, you have a Charlotte sideboard, this is an automatic include in it, regardless of if you're Alice or not, because this does not rely on you playing Alice. Would you main this? It depends on your deck. It depends on how much stuff you're playing beforehand, how relevant shooting entities is for you, as well as if you can keep up with the card advantage required to play a card like this. But I do like this card. I think it is very strong, especially the fact that it can be unchaseable. Adam in the World of Duels. So it is a singular light will Tails Resonator. It is a fairy tale. He is a 3/5. On enter, rest target J Resonator your opponent controls. It loses all abilities until end of turn. And then he has a Revolution for Wind Regalia to destroy target rest J Resonator. So he... Snow Crash! Thank you for the 5 gifted subs. I appreciate it. Varison, Fire Drake, Disease, Ryan F. and Miles, and Onii. Enjoy your new emotes. But so anyway, for Adam, with Wind Regalia, destroying target rested J Resonator is good for like tap effects and other things like that. The issue is the rested part. So like Adam can force rest things. However, a lot of the times if you have an effect like him sitting in play, your opponent just won't rest things until they can deal with the card. The other issue with Adam is he doesn't actually create, like, it's not like your main like game plan that you're going for, right? So like your main game plan isn't, oh yes, I'm gonna sit on a bunch of Wind Regalia and slowly tap them as my opponent taps their J Resonators to attack me, right? He's also not quick cast, so you have to be doing this at sorcery speed, which isn't great. You don't really like playing the game at sorcery speed a lot of the time. But it is what it is. Would you play it in Alice or like a light deck? I don't think so. I honestly do not think you would play Adam. He just doesn't seem to be doing what the deck wants. You already have other effects, like Alice enters the Game of Gods, that blank, right? So it's not like you need more of those types of effects, okay? Ayu, Multidimensional Wanderer. Okay, so there are 2 cards in this set that, when I did a spoiler stream like 2-3 weeks ago, something like that, it's Ayu and Guinevere, the 1-drop Guinevere in the set. I talked about how these cards are what I would call safe. They're safe plays. So what I mean by safe, I'll go over it again, is it is typically a Yu-Gi-Oh term in the sense that you can make a play in Yu-Gi-Oh that is considered safe because even if your opponent does something to disrupt it, it doesn't completely stop your turn. Guinevere and Ayu are very similar to stuff like that in that sense. For Ayu, right, the main issue with the safeness as well is playing them turn 1 in order to order them, right? So if you go second, you have Energize, you order them before you call a stone, because you need to have the thing untapped in order to do it. So for Ayu, right, if you use your Light Will, in Alice specifically, this is in Alice, you order Ayu, your opponent cannot cancel it, okay? So now your Ayu's gone into play, and now you have 2 enter abilities going on to the chase. You have Ayu's enter ability of Produce Light Light, and you have Alice's enter ability, which is going to be to create a Regalia and to draw a card. Ayu, you will always pick Light Regalia, right? Because that will give you more mana. So if your opponent doesn't stop Ayu, and I'm going to actually swap over to Untap to kind of like show this off. I'm just going to create a new game real quick. Daddy Kyron. You love Charlie's analysis videos because he goes so in depth, breaks down every aspect of the card that 99%. Oh no, it's a copy pasta. Oh my god. But thank you for the compliment. I'm assuming that's a compliment. So if you have something like Ayu, right? So this is the Ayu on Untap. Flute's just like a good card. Tea Party is something we'll get into, and then 3 Tea Party members is also something we'll get into, right? So if you order Ayu into your second turn, your Alice is going to be flipped, right? So your Alice is flipped, your Ayu's coming out. You're going to get your Regalia token. You're going to get 2 Light Will to play with. And then the Regalia token will also be able to produce... I hate that copy pasta, by the way. We'll have a will to produce. So, like, with 3 Tea Party members, you can tap your Regalia, you produce a light for that, you have the 1 extra free light will, you can play a Tea Party member, right? An 8/8 precision flying drain, you recover that Regalia, and then you draw another card. So now you still have 1 light will, you have your Regalia will still, and then you've gone completely value neutral. Like, this has cost you 0 cards. And then you can still call a stone with IU and play, like, I don't know, a Tea Party, a Flute, anything like that. Like another 1-drop. Even if you don't have Tea Party members, you can play other 1-drops off of the Light Will, right? So that's, like, stuff you can do with IU. Your turn 1 is very explosive if your opponent does not deal with it. However, even if your opponent does deal with IU, let's say they kill it, right? You're still going to have 2 Light Will. You will have a Regalia token. They will have had to kill it in response, which means you can change it to a different color if you so choose and want to. Because you don't choose until resolution of Alice's effect. And then you still have the 2 Light Will to play with. And your opponent can't do anything. They would have been tapped out, right? They only get the 1 stone. So unless they have a 0 mana effect in addition to 1 mana, you're safe to do other stuff that turn. And like board setup and stuff like that in order to apply pressure. Which is very weird to be able to do that early in a game. If they try to stop one of the automatic abilities, if they stop the production of double white, you go into your opponent's turn with a Regalia token, which can produce will of any color, and a stone that you call with your IU afterwards. So you go into your opponent's turn with 2 will. Or you can play something with the Regalia. If they stop the Regalia production, you still have your IU, however you also get 2 light will, which can be used to play 2 other cards in your hand, and your opponent can't do anything, right, because they've decided to stop the effect of the Regalia, and you can use that light will to play flutes, set up other cards to potentially do more stuff on your opponent's turn, filter with IU's ability to draw a card. It's just a very powerful, safe card. It doesn't matter if your opponent kills it. Killing it is the best thing your opponent can do, typically, but it doesn't matter if they do. You'll still have setup into your opponent's turn, and if they stop one of the activate abilities, you still have a board to apply pressure. So IU is a very safe and powerful play. This is one of the things we were referring to, like with Hanzo, when Hanzo was first spoiled for Kaguya. People were concerned about turn 1 Hanzo, but everyone came to the conclusion that if you were in a mirror match, Feasting would simply stop the Hanzo and you would be behind so much that you couldn't actually recover from it. That changed because of how ordered worked. This is when we thought you could order even if the ruler was tapped. However, Hanzo was becoming a very safe turn 1 play, but because of how the enter effect works and everything that was stacked and all that, it became a very unsafe turn 1, because you got so severely punished if your opponent had an answer that you just effectively lost the game on the spot. IU is not like that. IU is very safe, and that is what I mean by that. Even if my opponent left open a mana, if my opponent was Carlina, had an untapped Carlina and a mana up, I would still slam an IU on turn 1, probably. Right? Like, it is just that impactful and that powerful of a play in order to get the ball rolling like that. So, that is IU. She also has she's also a win con. She can also just gain 40-40. Like, this card's great. So, all good things about her. IU's Little Friend. So I believe IU's Little Friend is the only card that can actually change the attribute of Regalia. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure it's the only one. It's a single light will. You draw a card so it replaces itself. It allowing you to functionally get more and more Regalia is kind of neat. The main thing with it would be, like, I play IU, I get a light Regalia. I have, like, an IU's Little Friend in play. I play, like, an Alice Enters the Game of Gods type effect, like one of this Regalia production effects, but I change my light Regalia to, like, water, so I pick light for this one as well, and then moving into the next turn, I now have 2 light Regalia, so IU produces 2 will with it. That's, like, the best function of IU's Little Friend, but I don't know if it's good enough to warrant playing this card. It might be. Is it? I'm unsure. I truly don't know. The fact that it replaces itself makes it better than just like not doing that, but 4/4 is a very poor stat line for 1-drops, especially those that rely on activated effects. So time will tell whether it's powerful enough to be played, but we'll see. Charlotte, Chasing Light. Tails, quick cast, 7/7. J Resonators, your opponent controls, cannot be recovered as long as this card is in play. That's pretty good. Rest a recovered Regalia you control, prevent all damage that would be dealt to this card by chance or ability sharing an attribute with the Regalia rested this way. And then its Revolution Enter is it destroys X non-magic stone entities your opponent controls, where X is the number of Regalia you control, and Water Regalia draw you cards. So your Water Regalia will net you value, right? So like if you create a Water Regalia off of this, like off of the flip with Alice, that Water Regalia will tap, net you a card, and Alice's flip will net you a card, which means you go value positive on the play of Charlotte, which I mean is good. And just it destroying X non-magic stone entities, so like you're already going to go like tempo positive too. Pretty good card. It being quick cast is also very strong. Play it in Alice? Probably. More than likely, being able to rev it. Alice's revolution targets are all pretty impactful on their just like straight revolution side, so it makes a lot of sense to want to unrevolution / kill them, which just makes her get more value off of them because they both have good. Alice's flip is probably the best of all of them because it just says draw a card, which is pretty nuts, not gonna lie. But yeah, Charlotte's pretty good. I'd play a number of her. I'm not sure how much, but I don't think it'd be 4, maybe 3, potentially 2. Deep Blue Soldier, another way to get Regalia, as well as make your Regalia eternal. I don't actually think we have any form of Regalia destruction in New Frontiers currently. I'm sure there's like bounce target entity cards, or entity destruction. Entity destruction would get it, but I don't think we have anything that's just pure Regalia destruction anymore, because AO Alice Origins rotated. So giving them Eternals okay if you're trying to stop them from getting like board wiped or entity destroyed or anything like that. The other thing is just banishing it anyway to get it into the grave in order to play it more to get more Regalia. That's probably like the best function of Deep Blue Soldier. But again, I don't know. Like, in order to spam Regalia, like for the want to spam Regalia, you want Ayu's Little Friend in order to get multiple Regalia of the same color, like water or light, in order to get like more effects like that. But like, those both cost mana. So I don't know how good like spamming your Regalia is going to be, or like having that many Regalia is going to be. If you could make it, like, let's see, if you Judgment Ayu on 1, your opponent does nothing, you have like 3 will, you go like Deep Blue Soldier, Alice enters the game of gods, Deep Blue Soldier, that gets you what, 4 Regalia? Going to the next turn, Call a Stone, you get 5. I guess you can go into your turn 2 with 5 Regalia if you have Ayu and 4 Regalia production cards. That's kind of funny, but not that great, I don't think. I don't know. Maybe we'll probably see some decks with it. I don't know if that's like the main way you want to build Alice, though. I don't think it is, but it's neat. It's a neat function. If there's a bunch of entity destruction going around, or you feel like you need your Regalias, maybe it's a sideboard tech. But I don't foresee this being the wave. Delphinius Whale Hero. This card costs 3 and does not have quick cast, therefore it is bad. Or it does not cost less than 3 somehow else. J Resonators with flying you control gain barrier. Destroy all J Resonators with flying your opponent controls. Oh, and then you can make your opponent's stuff gain flying. And you draw a card. When you rev it, you also draw a card. So you draw 2 cards. and then you can potentially kill 3 things your opponent has, or give 3 things you have barrier / flying. It's not terrible. It's not great, but it's not the worst. I don't think you play this in like an Alice deck or anything like that, but I don't know. 3 mana is just such an awkward area. The game's just like, the game so will, like, you need to be doing so much more powerful stuff for like 3 will. Like, you need to like win the game, right? And I don't think this card says win the game on it, but that's just me. Self-kill Aya to turbo to 5 Regalia, then bring her back with Keep the Faith and Jammer for 40/40. Genius. So yeah, so I don't know about Delphinias. Fairy of Mot. Quick cast flying. This card gains +4/+4 for each Regalia you control. So it's... You and this card gain barrier as long as you control 5 or more Regalia. This card's actually not that bad. It's like a 1 mana. I mean, I'd assume most game states you're gonna have around 9 Regalia, around 2 Regalia, so it's a 9/9. If you ever get to 5, it just also functions as like a Wind of Asgard, sort of. I don't hate this card. I quite like it, actually. Do I like it enough to play it in an Alice deck? Maybe. Maybe not, but maybe. I like it, I just don't think I'd play it. Probably. I'm not sure. It gives me, like, Ava vibes. From, like, Shahrazad. It's, like, same kind of concept, but, like, for a different format. Because it's pretty much just a vanilla, right? It's a vanilla flyer that just gets big. But it's only 1 mana, so... And it's instant speed. Which I don't hate. Phantom Beastmaster of Mot. Quick cast, you may pay 1 less if you control a J-Ruler. It's effectively 10/11 in stats, and then you can sack 4/4 of those stats in order to prevent damage that would be dealt to you. I think this is a very good sideboard card against, like, burn decks, like Nyarlathotep and other stuff like that. I think the fact that it's 10/11 for a singular mana, like, in stats is also very good. Like, with Ayu, right? You Revolution the Ayu, you have the 2 free white will, you pay 1 of that into a Phantom Beastmaster. Like, you get 10/11. You can almost, like, with an uninterrupted Ayu, you can, like, almost set up enough pressure on board to give lethal after a turn. It's very powerful. The extra damage and stuff. I like this card. Again, it's so weird to debate whether, like, to think whether or not I would play, like, tempo-related cards like this, because the game just hasn't been in a state like that in such a long time. It's been so oriented around just auto kills in the form of, like, Bahamut or Atomic Turbulence or like Presea Chains or, like, other things like that. There just hasn't, it hasn't felt like you just, or like the Inferno Belial Dante combo deck, and then the other decks competing against those were like Feathmouge hard counter control, Astema Belial hard board control, like Carlina Belial hard board control. Kind of a mixture of both, honestly. It's just like the game's been in like such a weird state that tempo itself has just like fallen off. But like, I mean, if you can just fucking slam a shit ton of dudes, like, go for it, I guess. Maybe we're back in tempo format, who knows. Strategy meeting. Light, draw X cards where X is the number of Regalia you control. It is not instant speed. I should not have to explain why this card is terrible. So I'm not going to. That card is very bad. Tea Party before the Decisive Duel. Okay. So, Tea Party before the Decisive Duel is one of the best cards in this set. A singular light will, it is quick cast. The effect of Tea Party before the Decisive Duel is remove this card from the game. So if you are to cast Tea Party before the Decisive Duel, the only thing that will happen at the resolution of the effect of this card is it will remove itself from the game. This card gains all that text as long as it is in your removed area. is a continuous effect on the card. It is not reliant on the card resolving. It is always there as long as Tea Party is in your RFG area. So, what does that mean? It means this card's very good with certain Wanderer decks. Specifically, Dark Tree or Tree 2.0. That allows you to just take all damage. All damage you would take is sent to the RFG instead, face up. Also has Rezard, which can loop this card effectively, as long as you have the life to pay for his effect. And then also Death Scythe. As long as you have enough targets for Death Scythe, this card can loop. If you get 3 Tea Parties in your grave and a way to discard Death Scythe, or send it to the grave somehow, you can infinitely loop Tea Parties and Death Scythe. Okay? Old Death Scythe. Or OG 0 mana Regalia Death Scythe. Okay, so that is how Tea Party works. I am told in the future CR, the one that should be coming out with this set, there will be a clause that prevents Tea Party's activated effect of putting it into your grave unusable if you are under a replacement effect that would send cards from your grave to the remove from game zone. Basically, what the text is going to read is something similar to if an effect would instruct you to put a card in a zone, and it can't reach that zone, or it stays in the same zone, it does not move, or you cannot activate that effect. So there are no, like, quote-unquote infinites that way. But Death Scythe, other ways to RFG this card consistently, other things like that, will allow you to loop Tea Party. That being said, you may play your next Light Resonator spell as though it had Quick Cast. If you are to loop this effect, even if you were to stack like 50, your next Light Resonator has Quick Cast, it will only count again the next Light Resonator, not the next 50. That's not how it works. So if you're trying to make multiple things have Quick Cast, you have to do it one at a time. Outside of all the infinites and weird shenanigans, this card is still very strong. So it being in the RFG, its effect, draw a card and recover a stone, it effectively costs 0 mana and 0 cards. It is completely value neutral and makes a Light Resonator have Quick Cast. However, part of what makes it so good is, again, Ayu, which gets to give you 2 mana that does not stay in play. So you can use that Light Will from Ayu to play a Tea Party to effectively, like, stalk your Light Will and hold it in the RFG in order to use it at a later point, or like later time, right? So Tea Party is very good and functional off of that. It is also not just like stuck in Alice. None of this has Force Resonance, none of this has Tails. So this card is good in a variety of light decks. This card seems weird with Charlotte, but I think Charlotte allows you to choose whether or not you want to put the card back. But I'd have to reread that Charlotte from the 7th. But anyway, Tea Party is just a very powerful card. Being able to give your guys Quick Cast that don't have Quick Cast is very strong. Stocking up on card advantage as well as like free mana and stuff like that is very strong. Again, typically one of the best things you can do is in FAO is to go up mana somehow. Tea Party allows light decks, well, all decks, but light decks in specific for New Frontiers to go up in mana. So Tea Party is a very good card. If I were to play like an Alice deck, I would probably play 3 of it in the main, at least, maybe 4. I don't know if I'd play it off of a Charlotte, but like sometimes you just don't want more of this card. Okay. Like, it is that powerful, but it's not powerful enough for me to be like, oh yes, auto 4 of and everything. It is still quirky like that. If your opponent has a Dante and they have activated Dante's God Art Sloth, Tea Party never works, okay? Because this card gains as part of a continuous effect, by the time it reaches the RFG, it will already be under Dante's effect, which means the continuous effect will just never apply in order to give it its activated effect. Even if it did, by the time it gained the activated effect, it would just not have the effect anyway, right? So, like, depending on it doesn't matter what layer it came in on, it just will not work. So Dante always beats this card, unlike Heart to Heart Talks. The last light card, the 3 Tea Party members. We saw this when I was kind of doing that quick little IU thing earlier. Triple light costs a light less for each Regalia you control. You can recover Regalia when you play them, and you draw a card. Also has precision, flying, and drain, and is an 8/8. Again, just a very powerful card to play off of IU. It replaces himself. It's a free 8/8 with drain and precision and flying. Like, it can just hit things for free. If you're not doing anything with your Light Will, it's just another option to use your Light Will in addition to just get extra effects off of your Regalia, depending on what you have revolutioned, right? So that's 3 Tea Party members. I'd probably play 4 of it in like an Alice deck. I just think it's very strong for that. And you typically have enough Regalia. Even if like you don't have the IU stuff out, right? Like if you have 2 Regalia, this is 1 Light Will. If you have 3 Regalia, which we've seen you can get Regalia quite easily if you so choose, this card's just free. And like free draw a card is just on a body is just good. Okay. Agony. I mean, we'll get into Rudra. I think Agony and Rudra are not that great. So part of it, they're very similar to Jizo Statue, if you ever played in that format. The original, like, the Rune rulers, so like when Brunhild, Hanzo, all them were rulers. New Valhalla, there we go. Jizo Statue gained +1/+1 counters, it got bigger, and then it was allowed to attack when it got enough counters. Rudra and Agony are kind of similar, so they have the +1/+1 counter effect. They both double their +1/+1 counters at the end of the turn, right? So they'll do it on your turn and your opponent's turn. And then they both have a revolution effect. Agony will burn your opponent, Rudra burns the board. They apply the revolution effects of the other one. So if you have both of them, you blow up your opponent's board, basically, and then you burn your opponent for damage. If they go unanswered and you have both of them, sure, you win the game. The issue is that they have no built-in protection and they have no built-in, like, value attached to them. So even if I play an Agony, even if I play a Rudra, when I play them, I either have to have more protection for them, which means I need to sink in cards and mana in order to protect them from my opponent, who is probably going to kill them. And kill spells have gotten very, very powerful and very, very mana efficient. So typically, if you're trying to play like Resonators and stuff like that, you either have to have gotten that card for free, or you have to, or that card has to quasi-replace itself or have some other kind of function. Just being, like, you slap it and it's just like a stat stick is not that powerful anymore. Slapping something into play and being like, here's my stat stick, deal with it, is very reminiscent of a tempo format, and like I said earlier, we're not really in a tempo format. So that's Agony. Same thing with Rudra. I feel the same way about both of them, despite the fact that they're 1-drops. And the other thing is, because they have this ramp-up time, the later on the game goes, the worse they get, because you have to deal with them ramping up, and it's just so mana inefficient. Okay. Dedicated Duel. Oh god. Red, not quick cast. Choose a J Resonator with the highest attack among J Resonators. Oh, and you destroy all other J Resonators. I mean, typically the highest attack one is the one you want to kill. So sinking mana to not do that. And again, like, board spamming is not really the wave currently. Again, if it becomes the wave, maybe this is like a good sideboard tech. But this card's just not gonna really see play. It's not targeted destruction in any form of the sense. Hellfire of the Demonic World, a single red quick cast. J Resonators with Eternal and or Barrier. Your opponent controls, lose them. And then this card deals 1,000 each. This is getting like more relevant because like more and more cards are getting Eternal and Barrier, as well as just having effects that grant Eternal or Barrier, like something like Wind of Asgard from the last set. Hellfire finally partially your opponent's thing's Barrier. That too. I mean, it might be seen as like a sideboard tech option. Like you might play this in red as sideboard tech. I'm just not really sure. A lot of the times it just turns into like a cancel war, or like your opponent just has a hard time dealing with certain things. It's less so that something has Eternal or Barrier. Kills Wall of Terror if they have any cards in hand, but then they can just pitch cards in response, so it doesn't actually kill Wall of Terror. But it kills everything that Wall of Terror gave Barrier, more than likely. So that might be good. Interesting card. Again, probably it's like sideboard tech if you ever run into people just playing Eternal / Barrier dudes. Nyarlathotep Doll. Singular red addition, treated as a fire magic stone. If your J ruler is Nyarlathotep, at the beginning of the game you can reveal it as long as you haven't revealed another card with its name, and you can play it from outside the game as long as it is revealed. A effect we will see on a few other cards, and a interesting effect. It's like almost like giving rulers runes, sort of. I don't know. Force of Will tends to like outside of the game mechanics like a lot, like Shahrazad, runes, Fox, this. Just kind of always falls back into that little category. But for Nyarlathotep, I mean, you play the one of Doll in your sideboard because you can. Just being able to get a free resonance proc is very strong. It can't produce any mana, so all Nyarlathotep Doll is good for is proccing resonance. So I mean, you would be able to proc like Isis, Little Red, like other stuff like that. So it has its functions. I think it's good as like a combo extension piece or like other things like that. Might just get you there with damage and so on and so forth. So, like, I don't hate it. You don't main deck it. You just play the one of in the board. That's it. That's all it really is. Presea, Dangerous Duelist, red and 1. It's a Tail, Swiftness, Precision, Pierce, Revolution. Enter or whenever this card... Precision Pierce, huh? Revolution, enter or whenever this card deals battle damage to your opponent. Choose X times from the following at random, where X is the number of Regalia you control. You deal 500 to your opponent or to their board. And then fire Regalia, deal 500 damage. Okay. So it's just like a burn. It's an alternate win con instead of IU for the deck, or instead of going like all light. The biggest issue with this is, well, maybe it's not really an issue. So light is in a decent spot where light gets access to Magic Stone of the Six Sages for 5 color, and it also gets access to Amadeus for potential 5 color. Otherwise it's just a light stone anyway, which your deck is predominantly in, so it doesn't really matter. The issue is that with, like, if your opponent's playing a singleton ruler, your deck is going to be 4 Firestones, with them being Magic Stone of the Six Sages. Otherwise, the only other way you're going to be able to produce red is off of IU. But that means the IU has to be revved, which means you can't rev the Presea, which you would want to rev the Presea. So, I mean, maybe you play it as like a quick one of, just in case, because again, it can just randomly get there. But like, it's not that great for the deck. And again, if you're playing the version that doesn't like turbo out Regalia, you're not going to get that many procs. It being RNG isn't great. So that's kind of rough. Niar can use Presea too. I mean, it can for like the swiftness and the pierce, but like, you're not going to have any Regalia really, right? Like, I feel like if you add the Alice cards in order to try and facilitate Presea in Nyarlathotep, like, you're just making the Nyarlathotep engine worse. And I think Niar has better things. Because, like, everything Niar orders is going to have swiftness, right? So, like, something just being a 7/7 with swiftness for 2 mana, I don't think is going to be that great for Nyarlathotep, right? Because, like, think about, like, Little Red. When you order Little Red is going to be a 4/7 with swiftness base, and you'll get your 2 Firestones, which are going to make her a 8/11, like an 8/11. So she's only once, like, 100 attack under a revved Prisya. Plus, with you getting the Firestones, it might just be better than that. I don't know if you would play this in Niar. I don't think like you do. I don't think you do. I just think it's not where you're going with the plan. Never order Prisya unless you need the buff. Yeah, but then if you're never ordering her in Niar, like, it's just a 7/7 with swiftness and pierce. Like, there are better things to be doing. You're not really playing, like, combat tricks nowadays. So I don't particularly like it. But I mean, if it works, like, just having enough aggro stuff in 2-drops, like in Prisya and what's that other guy's name? The 10/2. Like, maybe that is, like, good enough. But I personally am not particularly a fan. Rogue Spectator. This card's kind of cool. So, a singular red 4/4 quick cast. Enter. Players cannot gain life until end of turn. At the beginning of the game, the reveal thing, right? So if you're in red, you just get a random one of, like, at any time while it's outside of the game. Play it. Neither player can gain life. I mean, really good if you want to prevent your opponent from gaining life from something, whether like a huge drain hit or like anything like that. And it can go in any deck. The effect is not part of, like, any force resonance or anything like that, so you can just put this into any red deck, or any deck that, like, burns or doesn't want your opponent gaining any life. Correct. He just applies for any deck. Doesn't even have to be red. You play it in Dark Tree, where players can't gain life anyway. Shiva's Flame Aura. Target J Resonary gains plus 600 in swiftness until end of turn. Draw a card. You can play it with, without playing its mana cost if it targets a Mimi tribe that had not been targeted by the aura already, or the wind one, and if you're Shiva. It's also not quick cast. I like the giving swiftness part, but the Mimi tribes that we have are so meh that I don't know if this card is, like, good enough to play. Time will tell for this. The fact that it draws a card and gives swiftness is nice. Like, it's good, and it technically costs 0, right? So, like, it's 0 mana, it gives something swiftness, draw a card, very powerful. Reminds me of Priscia's Call to Action. But I don't think... I think its restrictions are too tight for it to be good. But we'll see. Tiny Dragon of Ma'at. This card's bad. It's like a limited filler. Red 1, red if you have a J-Ruler. It's a 12/12 swiftness flyer if you control a J-Ruler. So it costs 1 more mana in a worse color than Gwyber in order to have swiftness. And you have to specifically have a J-Ruler in order to be Gwyber. That's all I'm going to say about that card. Violet Maria Bella. This is one of the promos that we saw, one of the first cards we saw. So Swiftness, Flying Eternal, red to recover her, play it only during your turn. So she can effectively block a whole bunch of times, a whole bunch of stuff. She has Fire Breathing, gaining +2. And then, this is a cool effect. The produce red, and it doesn't cease to exist during the recovery phase or end phase as long as you control this card. And then her Rev Enter is to produce 2 red, so you can filter that red into her own effect in order to generate like free will forever. Chasing Fire will be asked for a red deck to play. It'll be good. I like the fact that your will dump is just giving you more will. I think that's really cool and really fun. I feel like the only red deck that can take advantage of that currently would be Nyarlathotep. However, if there are other red decks that begin to exist that can take advantage of this, I am willing to be wrong. Or at least see them. But I think that is like the best part of her. Also the fact that she just like can't die. The other issue is it only will not cease to exist as long as you control the card. The main art's better for both of the promo cards. But so full stop. So if she does die to like Gradius or something that removes Eternal like Hellfire or anything like that, you will lose all that will. So you do have to be kind of careful, but I do like this card. I think it's pretty neat. Oh, we're getting into blue. Okay. Alright, Arthur, Space-Time Knight, Machine, blue 1, quick cast, Tails. Draw 2, put a card from your hand on top of your deck. Pay blue, discard him, draw 3, put 2 cards from your hand on top of your deck. So first effect is a Cheshire Cat, second effect is a Brainstorm. Play this ability only if you control a J ruler. Man, this card has a lot of text. Revolution, Machine Jays, gain +2/+2. Whenever a machine you control is destroyed, produce blue, and apply the abilities of Lancelot. High Fizz. So Arthur, I don't know how I feel about Arthur. I don't know if I like Arthur in Machina, because while he does replace himself with both types of effects, he just primarily stacks, which stacking is fine. The deck might want to be doing that anyway. However, you already know the top card of your deck, and you're primarily trying to just cycle through your deck as much as possible for like a T-Door win con, right? Like that's just like kind of what the deck is doing. So Arthur himself is pretty okay. The big thing is if you play Arthur outside of Machina decks. Like, you could play Arthur in, like, Fieth Mage, right? His effect almost functions as, like, similar to Big Show, right? But you just get, like, a little bit more filter, I guess. Because, like, right, so, like, something like with Arthur, this is very similar to, like, how people did stuff with Cheshire Cat and Hydromonica back in the day, is you would play the effect of something like Arthur, where you would draw 2, you would stack, you would be like, oh, I don't need this 2 of in my hand, or this 1 of that isn't usable in this match or anything, and you would stack it, and then you can use, like, Mage Dart in order to just bottom deck that card, or something like that. Right, or you just use, like, Mage anyway, and you could bottom deck it regardless. But, like, it's, like, similar effects to, like, that. Same thing with, like, Priscia, right? Like, I guess Priscia would be the better thing. Like, you Arthur, and then you Priscia. So, like, you Arthur, you Scry 2, you bottom deck the card that you just top decked with Arthur, right? So, Arthur has a bunch of application. He's also just a 7/7. Like, he's a decent body, and he's quick cast. So, he has application. That Fieth Mage was already Tails anyway, I'm pretty sure. So you're not really suffering anything there. So Fieth Mage might be changing a little bit. But we'll see. Outside of that, I don't really think there's like another deck that plays him. Like maybe you play him in Machina, like maybe he's just good enough. But yeah. Crawler from Between the Cracks of Time. This card was not spoiled. So it's blue 1, 7/7. You can rest 2 recover Dark Spheres you control rather than pay this card's cost if you play it from your hand, and you can play it from your graveyard by resting 2 recover Dark Spheres you control rather than paying its cost. You can pay blue to discard it to draw a card, and then for effects of Dark Spheres you control, treat this card also as a J ruler. I think this card is good for the Dante deck. The biggest issue... What do you tap Dark Spheres for? This and Amadeus, right? I think there's like one other thing. There's like the new black card, but I don't think you play that in New Frontiers. So those would be the only two things. So this would be like your early con for Dark Sphere tapping. Do I like this? I don't hate this. Shades of Shakti. Also, there's Fallen Angel in the arena, but she's bad. Excellent. I like that he also gets the Dark Sphere effects, or it. I shall not gender a Cthulhu. It's a 7/7. It's decent. I mean, it just keeps coming back, right? Like, it's just like always there as a threat. I think you play it, right? It's probably a 4-of. Do you have cards that discard for effects besides itself? I don't think so. Maybe you can. Play Wall of Terror. But yeah, I like this. I like this card for Dante. You probably play 4 of it in the deck. As long as you have a consistent way to drop it to grave, like, you definitely play 4 of it. Because you're not doing anything with the Dark Sphere stuff early on, until you probably get around 3 of them. Which is when you probably start playing, like, your Amadeus's. Because at that point, Amadeus is only 2 mana. I get that it can discard itself, but you're not playing a predominantly blue deck. Where's your blue will coming from? 6 Sage Stone? That's my point. That deck is predominantly black. And Darkness does not have a 5-color stone outside of Dante Stone. So your only 5-color stone is going to be Magic Stone of the 6 Sages, unless you play Magic Stone of Tides, which is just RNG on the other 4 colors and predominantly blue, but then you're in a worse color because it's blue. Like, this is probably the only blue card you're playing in the deck that isn't doubled down in a different color, right? Like, isn't multicolored? Like, that's my point with it. Like, how often are you going to get the blue discard effect and have the will to, like, pay for that and not want to do something else? That's the issue. If this were Wander, sure, it's an auto 4-of, because you're playing 10 5-color stones anyway. Or just all duels or whatever. As soon as the duels come back, yeah. But I like that. It's probably a 4-of, even though it's, like, taxed like that. Delorious, Space-Time Vehicle. Oh, that's another thing Arthur's good for. I didn't even think of that. Okay. Delorious, Space-Time Vehicle. Blue 1. This card's really cool. So, Eternal, enter, choose 1. You can bottom deck an order card, which is... Bottom decking a J ruler is kind of hysterical, but it is what it is. And then, or you can bottom deck a Resonator. So you can pick to either bottom deck a J ruler that's a Resonator, or a Resonator that's a Resonator. And you can rest a recovered Resonator you control. This card becomes a 20/20 with swiftness until end of turn. If you rested a card named Tidor, it also gains... What is this precision pierce shit? I hate this. Stop giving cards precision and pierce. It just causes ruling discrepancies. And barrier. If you rest Guinevere, it gains flying. So it's eternal swiftness flying. But you have to do a Resonator. So you can't do an ordered card. So you can't, like, turn 1 Guinevere, flip it, if you order the Guinevere, right? You don't pierce if you target attack a Rezo, right? If your card is blocked when you precision attack a Resonator, you will deal pierce damage to the Resonator you originally targeted, but you don't do damage to your opponent. Like that's part of the issue. People just don't understand that Pierce functions as, if this card is blocked, you damage the original attack object, as opposed to just if this card deals damage greater than the capacity of the card, deal the rest to your opponent. Like, a lot of people just don't understand that, because I'm pretty sure trample is the second way. If a card deals damage greater than capacity, deal it to your opponent. Because you can't attack creatures in Magic. So, Pierce to attack Rezo if you do over the block of another Rezo. Correct, yeah. That is how Pierce works. Yes. Yeah. So it's just it is just a awkward discrepancy between it's just an awkward discrepancy between Magic rulings as well as how Force of Will plays. But anyway, I like this card. I think you play an amount of it. With how much card cycling Machina has, you might play 4 of it. It's also one of the few machines. There aren't a lot of machines printed in this set. So you might have to play 4 of this card, which is fine. But yeah, I think the effect is fine for what it is. I think it's an alternate win con to the alternate win con Machina already has, which it kind of needed. If it was kind of all in on T-Tor, the deck would be a lot worse, just in general. But I think Dolores is a good alternate win con. It also just has Eternal, so it needs to be bounced instead of destroyed. Other good stuff like that. Deus Ex Machina enters the Game of Gods. Search your deck for a machine, reveal it, put it into your hand, reveal Machine Resonator, destroy target J Resonator if its total cost is less than or equal to the cost of the revealed card. So this can search Dolores, but it cannot reveal Dolores. I'm just going to skip ahead real quick to see what that card can actually reveal. So it can reveal a 3-drop, a 1-drop, a 2-drop, and that's it in New Frontiers. Unless there's a machine in other sets that's playable, but... So I had high hopes for Machina enters the Game of Gods. I really did have high hopes for this card, but it has failed me. Now, this card's really cool in Wanderer, where you can search a machine that has a CMC of 10, because that means you can kill any J Resonator in the game. This is still probably fine, and you still probably play Deus Ex Machina as a 4 of, or enters the Game of Gods as a 4 of. So this probably forces you to play 4 Arthur. So like what happens is Deus Ex Machina allows you to search Arthur, which allows you to functionally use like the stacking effects and stuff like that. In addition to also allowing you to kill stuff with the Arthur shots. The biggest issue is Lancelot is real bad. We'll get to him, but he's like pretty dog doo-doo. So like this is always hitting like a 2-drop effectively. So if there are 2-drops you want to hit, which I mean the game's mana low enough where there are probably enough 2-drops you want to hit. And if it's not at that state, you're still cycling into a card that you want to cycle into to facilitate the T-Tor win con, right? So you're again probably playing 4 of this if you're playing a Machina deck. It's unfortunate that Machine Resonators are so gimped, but they probably partially did it because of this card. It is what it is. You hate it, but it is what it is, I guess. Falling into the Cracks of Time. Singular blue, quick cast. You can choose both if you're Machina. If a Resonator with total cost 1 or less would enter the field this turn, put it on the bottom of the owner's deck instead. Or put an order card your opponent controls into their ruler area as a ruler. They're red machines, but are they playable? This is also a 2-drop, which doesn't solve the problem. The violet ones are also all 2-drops, right? Because I think Violet herself is just a wanderer. I don't think she's a machine. I'd have to check. But, well, you know what? Fuck it. I'll open another Force of Wind. Advanced search. Race. Machine. Add new frontiers. Search. What do we got? Oh, this 3-drop is one. Okay, so Flame of Providence. So there's this one, but then you'd have to play Atoms. So you're probably not doing that. It's also in a different color. And that's it. That's all the machines. So, I mean, you already have... There's nothing greater than a 3-drop, and, I mean... You technically have Lancelot. Ugh. God, Lancelot's so bad. But anyway, Falling into the Cracks of Time. Good effect, right? So, like, total cost 1 cards are pretty prevalent. Like, that's all, like, the floodgates, right? So, like, Academy Guard, Exorcist Mage, Witch of the Fallen Kingdom, other stuff like that. The funny part about this is it doesn't stop your opponent from ordering stuff, right? Because they're not Resonators, they're J-Rulers. So that would not work. But it can also just put that card back. It would make the card a Resonator again, right? So you can unrevolution cards if you want to. Is there anything I'd want to unrevolution specifically? I guess like T-Door or anything like that. It has its uses. I definitely think this is more of like a sideboard tech card, but I could definitely see like people playing this deck as, or playing this card as like a, hey, don't do that this turn, right? It also says 1 or less, so it stops token effects as well. So like if you try to play against like Carlina Azmodius, it just stops that. If they do the like the Cthulhu dudes, Unrev a Hanzo, I guess. Yeah, like stuff like that. Yeah. Okay, Guinevere. I alluded to this earlier. Guinevere is the second card in this set that is quote-unquote safe. So a singular blue mana wanderer. Tails, your opponent pays 1 more to play spells or non-will activate abilities during your turn. As long as she is a machine, they pay 3 more instead, and when you rev her, enter your name a water machine card with total cost 3 or less, reveal the top card of your deck, blah, 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 you can play it. Anyway. So, Machina's Order makes the card he is ordering a machine, and it lets you look at the top card of your deck at any time, right? So, as long as your deck is always waters and machines that are total cost 3 or less, Guinevere will always get you the top card of your deck. Why Guinevere is safe when you rev her. Why Guinevere is safe. So when she's revved, she instantly becomes a machine, which means she'll immediately apply her continuous effect as soon as she hits the field. Because she's ordered, your opponent cannot cancel her, which means she will always hit the field. So as soon as she hits the field, your opponent now has to pay 3 more in order to play any card in the game, or any activate ability, which no deck in the game can do, not even Carlina, on after their first turn. So if you go your first turn, you have Energize, you play Guinevere, your opponent cannot do anything. They literally cannot do anything for the rest of the turn. It is not possible for them to do so. So they either have to A, preemptively do something, or B, do nothing. Those are the only 2 options. Or have some random automatic effect that triggers when a ruler enters the field, or an enter ability goes on the chase. Some weird shit like that. But they cannot do anything active that effectively uses priority during the rest of your turn, right? Because they just won't have the mana to do it. If, like, right, they're Carlina, right? Let's think about this. They're Carlina, they have 1 mana, they have the 1 will. They have an untapped Carlina, they have 2 more will, they have 3 will. She makes everything cost 3 more. So they have to play a 0 mana card if they want to play it. So that's what it is. So Guinevere is safe. Guinevere cannot be touched. Violet cannot activate her activated effects, right? And nothing can be done in response either because of how order works. So Guinevere is just a safe play. The other interesting part about Machina Guinevere, Tidor's Gimmick, those cards in general, it makes your opponent have to play on their turn at sorcery speed, which a lot of decks do not like to do. Typically, the better decks do not like to do that. So we'll see how good Machina gets, but forcing your opponent to play on their turn is a very powerful effect. Very powerful. Gwen only being a 4/4 means she's pretty easily killable, especially because Machina doesn't give any stat increases. But just forcing your opponent to play on their turn and it just getting you a free card when you flip her is very strong. Knowledge from the future. Draw 2 cards. If you're Machina, you can do the reveal from game, and it costs 1 less to play if you control a machine entity. So it's a blue, draw 2 cards from your sideboard. You play one of it in your sideboard. I don't know what else to tell you. that's my take on the card. Lancelot's Faith Time Knight. This card is unfortunately real bad. So it's bottom deck on a Resonator, which we already have effects like this, but this can only be used if you control a J Ruler, which is restrictive. And then whenever the first J Resonator enters the field under your opponent's control each turn, this card deals 1,000 damage to it. So for 3 mana, you can prevent your opponent from maybe playing a card, but if it has Eternal, it doesn't matter. Or if its stat line's bigger than 1,000, it doesn't matter. This has Flying Pierce, and you can banish a Machine Resonator to gain +2/+2, and then Water Resonators in your hand gain Quick Cast. Water Resonators in your hand gain Quick Cast is probably the most relevant part of that, but typically Water Resonators aren't that great in the first place. Like, you're probably doing it to do like mass-produced Knight of the Round Table shit, but like you can just do that at sorcery speed because your opponent can't even play the game anyway on your turn. So, damn me not doing my taxes early. I just got my tax return today, so I'm living that life. And it applies the effects of Arthur. So honestly, you might play a 1 of Lancelot in your deck just to have a 3 CMC machine for Machina, or Deus Ex Machina enters the Game of Gods. Not be surprised if you do that. It can randomly be useful, like a random tech thing, give your stuff quick cast, he's like your J-Res, whatever, right? Like, he has that potential. But he's really bad otherwise. So, there's my take on Lancelot. Mass-produced Knight of the Round Table. You may have any number of copies of this card in your deck. A singular blue machine. Search your deck for up to 2 cards with this card's name. Reveal them and put them into your hand. It's a 4/4. So it's just, it's how you make your deck very small very quickly. It being the like machine type is for like Tidor's Gimmick, right? In order to do stuff off of that. It's just deck thinning for Tidor. That's really all it is. It also kind of allows you to swarm, sort of, with like Arthur and other stuff like that. So it has like that functionality as well. So it's kind of like Blue Swarm. It's like kind of the idea that they're going for. Play a 3 of. 3 mass produce. You would only play 3 mass-produced Knights of the Round Table. I would make a Machina deck with X amount of cards, and then I would fill it with mass-produced Knights of the Round Table. I don't know how many that would be, but that's what I would do. Is it worth to play more than 4 for the sake of deck thinning? Or just OG Machina? I mean, for this, the part of the issue, like, the other thing with it being a machine that you throw into your deck is even if you draw them, right? Like if you're playing the Arthurs, you can just stack them to the top of the deck if you don't want to see them, and then you can Tidor's Gimmick them away into your grave in order to get dudes anyway. So like them being a machine is more important than them like thinning themselves directly. Them being able to do that is nice, because it just means that every 1 mana you play, you rip 2 cards out of your deck, which, I mean, seems good to me, right? So, like, if you're playing even, like, 5, like, you pay 1, rip it, send it back, blah, blah, blah. The other thing that you can do is if you functionally play more than 3, you can use the Arthur effect to draw cards, send back your knights, play a knight, add the 2 knights that you just sent back, right? So like your knights just turn into other cards. So that's just like my thinking behind it. Whether or not it plays out that way is an entirely different question, but that's where I think the whole like idea with it is. But yeah, so that's where I think they are. I would not immediately go like, oh yeah, 10 mass-produced nice, let's start from there. But I would definitely try and like fill with this, or play it as just a 3 of, like you said, to just get the free 2 off of it, or something like that. But yeah, that's like kind of where I'm at with the card. Setting the stage for Providence. Quick cast. Spells and abilities you control cannot be targeted by spells or abilities until end of turn. Draw a card, and if your Machina players cannot chase to this card. So this prevents your opponent from canceling any of your abilities or spells. It also prevents you from like copying them, which is kind of funny, or like doing anything to them on the chase. It's a better Winds of Asgard. I would not equate this to Winds of Asgard at all. They functionally do 2 very different things. Winds of Asgard will full protect your board and prevent your opponent from touching it. This protects your chase and prevents your opponent from touching it. They are functionally very different. Because if you play Setting the Stage for Providence and then you play a Winds of Asgard that your opponent cannot cancel or anything like that, your opponent just cannot deal with your stuff unless they board wipe you. So they hit 2 very different parts of the game state. The other great part about Setting the Stage of Providence, or for Providence, is it also replaces itself. So it draws. It is very good for end game win cons. The players cannot chase to this card. It not being cancelable itself is fucking insane. It just kind of lets you go. Like, if your opponent's trying to play Fief Mage cancel stuff, and they are attempting to kill your board, or anything like that, they just suddenly can't. Like, it's just not possible. So, it's a very powerful card. White-blue, just play both, up proceeds to concede. Effectively, like, I would not play, well, I wouldn't say I would not play, but Setting the Stage for Providence is a very powerful card to play before your untap step, while you just have free mana from your last turn, because again, you're playing the game at quick cast typically, and then you just get free board. Like that's it. Your opponent just will not be able to do anything. And then if you somehow, like if you play a Guinevere after it, right? Like you just slam a Gwen, or you already have Tidor's gimmicks and stuff like that, maybe your opponent's not even playing in the first place because it's your turn. The other thing that this lets you do is if you are if you're Fief Mage, right, you can play Setting the Stage for Providence. It draws a card, which is fine, like you like that, and then you automatically win Cancel Wars, right? Your opponent cannot prevent you from winning Cancel War. Like, they can't do that. So it's just, if you have the will, you have a way. See what I did there? Ignore me. But it is just a very, very strong and powerful option for combo decks specifically. Funnily enough, what Setting the Stage for Providence also does is if you try to play this card in the Wanderer version of Welser, the Welser combo deck, which uses third boon to cancel your own spells, you can't do that anymore, because spells and abilities you control cannot be targeted by spells or abilities at all, not just your opponent's stuff. So it's a card. But this card is very good. It's very powerful. It is a very good combo enabler. And it's good for what Machina is doing. It drawing a card is also absurd. Space-Time Mage of Mot, blue 1, human. Her eyes look really weird. Your opponent pays 1 more to play spells during your turn. That similar effect. When it enters the field without being played from a hand, so off of something like Guinevere, off of something like Prisia, like the Big Show alternative Prisia, like other stuff like that, you get to draw 2 cards. So it's just like a value card. It's okay. It's another version of your opponent pays 1 more, but it's on a Resonator, which is a little bit worse. Not as good as Silent Mermaid, 2 out of 10. It is functionally different than Silent Mermaid, 4 out of 10. Get fucked. But so I don't know if you actually play this in Machina. I don't think you do. I think Tidor's Gimmick and Guinevere are giving you enough, as well as setting the stage for Providence, that you don't need another effect like this on a body that isn't do anything for 2 will, which is a very important number of will, for that like point in the game. Tidor, your other win con. So at the beginning of your turn, you get to draw an additional card. And then if he's revved, if you would lose the game due to drawing, you win instead. And then you can take an extra turn. So the like hold, take an extra turn, like all that good stuff, very good to like do a setting the stage for Providence and to potentially like take an extra turn. While you're in the turn for setting the stage for Providence, you can like set up Tidor's gimmicks or Guinevere's or like other things like that, right? And try and like go into that. So you just have like stuff like that. This seems like some mid-range card that may go into a different deck. I could see it going into like Fief Mouge as a one of, right? You just force your opponent to pay 1 more to play stuff during your turn, which you're primarily playing on quick cast. So like, and then you also can rip it off Prisia and you just get 2 cards. So like, I could see it going into that potentially. I don't know if there's any other deck that can facilitate it as well as that though. Kind of like Academy Guard, very similar to Academy Guard in that sense. But it's not twofold. So it's it has a different function. It's also a bigger body. So Tidor, the extra turn thing is like honestly cooler to me than the like Laboratory Maniac effect. Like that's cool, but like extra turns are typically so powerful. Because, like, if you go setting the stage for Providence, like, you have a Tidor in play, you use Knight of Knights, you activate the Tidor effect, you get your additional turn or whatever, and then you just, like, have 2 gimmicks in, like, you get 2 gimmicks in play that your opponent can't deal with now, like, all that, and then you, like, go into your next turn, and now your opponent still can't play anything because of all the extra spells and stuff. And then you combo off and kill them. Like, it seems like that's like kind of the way the deck wants to go, which is fine. I think that's very cool. I think it's unique. We haven't had extra turns that weren't just like you take them because it gives you 1 more will for a while. Everyone's saying Tidor like you ain't seen Steins Gate. I have not seen Steins Gate, so take that. Tidor's Gimmick, top 2 cards of your deck into your grave. I thought this was a Resonator for so long. Like, I know it doesn't have a stat line, but I just saw, like, Machine, I saw the art, I saw 1 cost, I saw Tidor's Gimmick, I was like, it's a 1. It's a Resonator. It not being a Resonator is very, very better. Very much better. It being an addition is a lot more powerful. So you get to tap it immediately, which means you get to mill 2 immediately. You get dudes for each Machine Resonator that you put into your grave via the mill, and then your opponent pays 1 more to play spells of your Machina, which is a very powerful effect for Machina that it's doing. So you play 4 of this in the deck. That's it. That's all it is. Not a lot of ad hate in main board. There's a lot more ad hate than there used to be. There's just random entity hate, specifically. So there's a lot more entity hate than there's been in the past. So that's kind of where it's at. Unity of the Machine Knights. A singular blue addition, choose 2 Machine J-Res you control. They gain Eternal Barrier as long as you control all 3 of them. Oh, this card and the 2 cards. They also gain +8/+8, or you can return it to your hand. I'm not going to talk about that card. We should all know why that card's bad. Back to nature. It doesn't do anything. It just buffs things that you already have, but like buffing things isn't good. Does it even give? Did it say give barrier? Eternal and barrier? Wait, that's even worse. We have a card that functionally hits both of those things. Oh god. Back to nature. A singular green, quick cast, destroy target light or water entity. If you're Shiva, players cannot chase to this card. I think this is so fucking funny. Because I think Dante is the worst of the 4 decks from this set. Maybe. I think. And I think it's so funny that Shiva just, like, hard counters the other 2. But yeah, players can't chase. It's a destruction. The usefulness of Back to Nature is very similar and reminds me of Gale Force from back in, like, Gwyber, Fox, Priscia format back in the good old days. Gale Force, if you don't know what it is a single mana quick cast destroy target flying resonator. So very, very similar to that, I think. The thing about Back to Nature is same mana cost, restrictive in the entity status. It has to be light or water instead of flying. However, it hits entities, which includes additions and other stuff. I guess this technically kills Regalia. Didn't think about that. But yeah. So, and players can't chase to it. That's another thing. Yeah. So, sideboard card. Just auto sideboard card. Very, very powerful. That's really it. Chamimi, Divine Power. Okay. So 7/7, we saw the other 3 vanillas. So we have 3 vanilla Chamimis, or Mimi tribes. There's a 1-drop, a 2-drop, and a 3-drop. The effect, so her first effect, she has Pierce. Her first effect appear whenever a Mimi tribe enters the field under your control. This card deals damage to target J-Res equal to the attack of that Mimi tribe. If this card would deal more than that target's capacity, it deals the rest to your opponent. This card has to target something, and it does not say your opponent controls. So it will hit your own things if your opponent doesn't have any legal targets. So do you keep that in mind when you are playing Mimi tribes with Chamimi out? It's a revolution effect. Enter, you may reveal X Mimi tribes with no abilities. Again, we have 3 vanillas. And with total cost X or less, you own from outside the game and put them in the field where X is the number of resonators you control. So, a couple things with this. 1, it is X Mimi tribes with total cost X or less, not combined total cost X or less. So, if you have 3 resonators in play, you can reveal 3 3-drop vanilla Mimi tribes and put them into play. That is what her ability allows you to do. The other thing with the verbiage on her ability, it says resonators. If you revolution her, she does not count herself because she is a J ruler. Okay, so you have to have other resonators in play in order to make make the payoff of the Mimi tribe thing worth it. I think Chamimi is pretty doggy doo-doo. We had Shoot the Mimi spoiled, which would have made her very strong, but then it doesn't work. It misses timing, which I'll explain when we actually get to that card. So it does not make her strong at all, and makes her very, very bad, actually. So, just item knights her. Dear God. So Chamimi is not that great for a Marvel rare. Again, 2-drop. Not functionally a bad card, shockingly. Also, Precision Pierce, I want to fucking scream. Okay. Dinner Time. A singular green mana, quick cast, produce 3 green. You cannot play non-resonator spells until end of turn. So, this came up in the Discord. Non-resonator is not, like, specifically, like, chance, right? So, like, how Academy Guard prevents you... If you have an Academy Guard in play and you play a Melfi, it's counted as you playing a chant and a resonator. Melfi is not a non-resonator. She is a chant and a resonator, right? So you can like play stuff like Melfi that has multiple typings, as long as resonator is one of the typings on the spell. The other thing, you can just play things that aren't spells. Activated effects, automatic effects that require you to pay mana for some reason. You can judgment, right? So like you can pay 1 will to judgment Feathsing if you're playing Feath Mage. It's like, that's kind of funny. Can you play chance and then use this card later on? Yes. Yes. It is not like Yu-Gi-Oh! Force of Will does not function like Yu-Gi-Oh! Does. So Dinner Time has its purpose. Would I play it in Shiva? Probably not. Would I play it in Feath Mage? Probably not. I'm like trying to think. The biggest issue, like, yes, going the extra will, like the ritual effect is nice. However, it doesn't go value. It doesn't play for value, like, at all. So you're going value down. So you would have to combo it with something that plays for value. So, like the best thing that I see Dinner Time doing is judgmenting Feathsing on turn 1. Well, it's not just a 1 will cancel. Like, it is a 1 will cancel with Feasting, but it's also you draw a card because you have Mouge Dart, right? So, like, you get the value off of that. You also get the cancel off of Feasting. So you functionally 2 for 1 your opponent off of 1 card, which, powerful, right? Like, very powerful, which is why it's, like, probably great in Feath, but I don't know if it has a home outside of that. Seems better in Wanderer? Maybe. But, like, what green resonators are you trying to, like, jam? The other issue with it is, like, you can't chain... Well, I mean, I guess you can, like, play, like, 2 Dinner Times back-to-back to get 6 green will. But, like, what are you trying to do with 6 green will? And specifically resonators? We Judgment OG Chamimi. Oh my god. I'm moving on. Giant Bird of Mot. Pay 1, discard this card. Target J-Res gains flying until end of turn. Draw a card. If the target is a Mimi tribe, draw 2 instead. It seems pretty good. Issue is I don't know how many Mimi tribes you're playing, but like if you play a chunk of them, this seems pretty good. Is there any attributeless will sync that just deals damage to face? There's Vlad, but I mean that's only 600 damage, so like it's not that great. Triple drop dinner into 10 giant rock dude on turn 4. I fucking hate it here. That seems pretty good depending on the Mimi tribes you play. Megalanica. 5 will, Mimi tribe, 2020. Pierce, please don't have precision. Oh wait, he gives other things precision. Okay. Thank God. Your opponent must attack this card if able. It gives everything your opponent controls precision. If damage would be dealt to this card, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it instead. Okay, so it's a damage... Well, it's not a damage prevention, honestly. But that's interesting. Replacement layers would work weird with him, but whatever. Whenever you rest a magic stone you control, this card deals 200 damage to each J Resonator. And you get to recover up to 4 magic stones if you rev him. So he functionally costs 1 and burns 8. They're really out here like, you know, we haven't used precision in a while. Give it to everything. So Megalanica's effect to function as a quasi board wipe on your opponent's turn is decent with Shoot the Mimi. However, I think Megalanica is the only target you would want to play off of Shoot the Mimi, which means Shoot the Mimi becomes a functionally dead card, which means you can't play a whole bunch of Megalanicas, which means, because he costs so much, which means you have to lower your Shoot the Mimi count, which means you're only playing like 1 or 2 Shoot the Mimis and like maybe 2 or 3 Megalanicas. And I mean, I guess you could play 1 Megalanica, 2 Shoot the Mimi, but that just sounds so bad. So I don't know how I feel about Megalanica in Shiva. Like, I get what he's good for, but it just seems so meh. Maybe. I could potentially see it. It is just a board wipe. That's kind of about it. He is a 2022. You know, they have just exploded a while. 3-drop Mimi, 2-drop Mimi, 1-drop Mimi. Okay, Rudra. We talked about this already with Agony, so I'm just going to skip over how I feel about Rudra. Shiva enters the Game of Gods. J resonators, you control game +2/+2 and Eternal. Again, this is board state, so you can like preemptively play that to give your dudes Eternal before you play them. And then it deals damage equal to the attack of total attack of J resonators to target J res. If that's greater than 3k, draw 3. 3k is kind of rough to hit if you don't do a Priscia train or some kind of Chamimi thing. Like, if you just drop Megalanica, he has to be, like, attacked X amount of times. And that means you would also have to have a target for Shiva enters the Game of Gods in order to gain, like, draw the 3 cards. So I'm not sure how many of these you would play. You might play like 1 or 2, maybe 2. I think you'd play 2 to try and function as like a combat trick, but it'd also randomly have like value tacked onto it, like draw value. Yeah. We'll do Shiva's Encouragement. Search your deck for any number of Mimi tribes with a combined total cost of 3 or less and put them into the field. Resonators gain swiftness. It is 3 mana, it is sorcery speed, it is cancelable, and you only get stuff that is 3 or less. This card's terrible. Shiva's Wind Aura, it's the same thing as the Flame Aura, except it's flying instead of swiftness. Flying is an inherently worse effect than swiftness. It's in the better color because you're on color. However, again, the whole Mimi tribe, we're not potentially playing a whole lot, and then it just becomes dead if you've used another aura already and you don't want to pay 2 for this card. You only want to pay 0. So you're probably playing 2 of the red one and none of the green one. Sniper Shot. Put 4 +1/+1 counters on target J-Res you control. The chosen target deals damage equal to its attack to target J-Resonator your opponent controls. Draw a card. Was this card spoiled? Wait, this card's sweet. Yeah, it was. When was this spoiled? This card's just an inherent 2 for 1. With, like, no downside. So if you're wondering why I like this, so it's a single mana, it's quick cast, right? That's like already great. 4, like going up +4/+4 is a pretty large amount considering how close everything is stat-wise between the 1 to 3 drop range. Like you saw the vanilla is a 5/5. Typically the highest 3 drop effects we have are like 10/10s. So like a 1 drop with this goes up to a 9/9, which puts it almost in range to kill something that's more mana intensive than it. So you pay 2 mana, kill a 3 drop, right? In addition, you kill something, they don't fight, it just fucking deals the damage to it. So like you're going to kill a thing with this, and it's going to replace itself if you're Shiva. So you go tempo up, you go value up, and you go big boy up. So this card's, oh my god. This card's sick. Valentine's Day, same day as Megalanica? Okay. I just don't remember seeing this card. This card's great. Love it. You might even play this in not Shiva. Who knows? But in Shiva, oh my. 3 quick cast, pay 1 less for each non-magic stone, non-J-res entity your opponent controls. So that counts Regalias and additions, which Fieth Mage is all additions, Alice is all Regalia, Kagi is all additions, Machina is all additions, Niar has a bunch of additions, Dante has a bunch of additions, Odin has a couple additions. This is playable in most decks. Quite a few of those have Eternal, but Niar only has like 2 additions. Yeah, but like typically they stick, right? So like unless you like actively went out of your way to kill them, like this still being just a 1 mana 9/9 with quick cast to kill something and draw a card is still pretty dope. Or if they have like multiple arena expansions or anything out, like it's just the 0 mana 9/9 quick cast that draws a card, right? So like it just being able to hit that stuff is good. It's really good against Alice, right? Like this is almost always costing 0 against Alice. 0 mana against Welser combo, 0 mana against Fieth Mage, it lets you hit Lycians. Yeah. I'm sure you play at least like 2 or 3 of this probably in the main for Shiva. Actually, this isn't even Shiva reliant, it's just villains reliant. Pretty good. Against Kog'Oth, so yeah. Trishula, this is Gretel, but an addition with another effect, and not as restrictive as Gretel. Green 1, J-Resonators, you control gain Pierce and Eternal, as long as the total attack is 3k or more, that's irrelevant. Then put the top card of your Magic Stone deck into the field. Trish revived the old meme. I know what the old meme is, but at the same time, I get it. I get why they posted it, because it has Gretel stats. People were or not stats, mana cost. People were equating it to Gretel, but it doesn't say Wind Stone. It just says the top card of your stone deck. It has no restriction. So the meme was lost on me, at least. I did not think it was as funny, but it is what it is. Do decks, Green Dragon is 2-drop 2. Yeah, but it gets the card into play like Rested, right? I don't know. Were people memeing with that one too? I don't know what to tell you, my guy. Trishula is like a better Gretel, it's just not a body, right? Singular mana, do you care about the Will Ramp? Do you even ever get a 2 mana addition off to Will Ramp? Does Will Ramping even matter? Find out next time on this episode. I'm trying to think. What would this be decent in, if anything? I don't know if you can play this in anything anymore. I just don't think you need mana ramp. At least not on 2. I think you're trying to maybe drop like a dork on 1 or ramp something on 1. We have Elixir and Magic Crest of Wind and NF for 1 will, 2 out of 10. It is 2 will, thank you. You have to pay 1 green and tap Elixir in order to put the card into play. It is also 2 cards and not 1 card. Your joke is 0 out of 10. Just kidding. They're just functionally different. But 1 card searches for the other. 1 card searches the top 5 for the other. Is also not a good searcher. It's basically a top checker. Deck thinning. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about Trish. I just think the game's evolved so much. We can unban Gretel. I'm pretty sure you could unban Gretel. The only argument is that her being a Resonator allows her to do dumb incarnation things. but I don't know if we even care about that anymore. So, but it is what it is. Amadeus, Beloved Fallen Angel, 30/30. Oh wait, I found the 3K for the Shiva enters the game of gods. Alright, we found the line. We're playing green and Dante. So, if damage would be dealt to you, it's dealt to this card instead. Enter your opponent discards 2. As you play this, Dark Spheres count towards whatever. I'm pretty sure after going through all the spoilers, the only way to rip out Dark Spheres from the sideboard is through Dante's order. So... So you're not really... You're not effectively doing this? I don't know how I feel about this. Because, like, it makes you want to play Amadeus Sphere in the main deck. Because the Dark Spheres aren't... The only thing that's relegated to them being different names, I believe, is Seven Deadly Sins. So it makes you want to play 4 of the Amadeus one, the single black sphere, in the main deck in order to just have extra spheres in order to facilitate the bug and this, but an Amadeus. Otherwise, you're not getting out as many dark spheres. Bug, that's a Cthulhu. It's a bug. Otherwise, Amadeus is very powerful. If you do get to even like 3 or 4 dark, like if you, or 3 or 4, if you get to 3, I think you're in a pretty good state. Paying 2 mana to make your opponent discard 2 and also just sit on this like nutty ass God's Art is pretty good, especially because they can't chase to it, so it's always going to resolve. It's just a free board wipe, right? So like just having that in addition to your opponent, like you just rip 2 out of your opponent's hand seems pretty decent, all things considered. Do you play 4 of this? I don't know. I think you do because of what Seven Deadly Sins does. But the mana cost is so intensive for Dante's stuff that I don't know if you can get away with it. So you might just play like a lower count of Amadeus, like 3 or 2. But you definitely play Amadeus in the deck. Like it's just like the big win con, right? Chimeric Beast of Mot. Rest or recover dark sphere you control. You may play this card from your grave. Play this ability only if this card is in your grave. You would have to keep using this every time it comes back, so every time you would want to bring it back, you would need to tap a dark sphere, which means you're not tapping it for the bug or for Amadeus. Swiftness, Precision Bane, it just kills stuff. Decent card, very good for limited. I don't think you play it in New Frontiers or Wanderer, though. Count Dracula, 7/7. Villains flying. Whenever J Resonator your opponent controls is destroyed, draw a card. J Resonators your opponent controls gain -7/-7. Very funny thing with this card, it facilitates the Melfi Rezard loop if it's revved, because Rezard's a 9/9, so you can just keep playing Melfi into it, and you can deck your opponent out. It's like, that's kind of hilarious. Because the draw on Dracula is mandatory, it's not an optional. Otherwise, giving a board -7/-7, what does that prevent? Prevents Prescia Trains, which is pretty good, unless they like have a pre-buff on it. You guess Doggy can deal with the Angel. Doggy can kill Amadeus, that is true. Amadeus is very weak. Amadeus does not have a lot of protection. Amadeus is just very thick and kind of just does a lot. That's like its main thing. I don't know if you play Dracula. Stops Nyara if you don't have red wine pre-buffs also. That's true. It wouldn't stop an Isis. It would stop the Little Red though. Orders Hanzo also too. If they have 3 or fewer moons, yes, it would stop Hanzo. because they gain stats based on the amount of moons you have when Kaguya is flipped. So, it's okay. Would you play it? Maybe? I'm not sure. I don't know if there's enough things that are you hit at the 7/7 area that you would like want to do. That's Kotaro, I think, though. Kotaro does have that text where he gets +2/+2 for each moon. But Kaguya just also has it. It's just additions. It's not even moons. Kaguya just has it as part of her order. Prevents most of the floodgates. It floodgates out the floodgates. Thinking. Big think. But yeah, decent card. Dante enters the Game of Gods. Probably the best generic enters the Game of Gods in this set. Singular black, or darkness. Target J-Res gains +4/+4, flying, pierce, drain, and bane until end of turn. You want to know the thing I fucking hate the most about this card? It doesn't give precision, it gives pierce. Which means if you have the Beatrice Darksphere out, you can give something precision pierce. I fucking hate this set, dude. So much. Every time I see precision pierce, I want to punch something. But anyway, the other thing I don't like about it is that the swapping of pierce and precision, like, it would make so much more sense if it got +2/+2, flying, precision, drain, and bane. Like, you just gave it all the effects of the dark spheres. But no, you just give it +4/+4, a different keyword. And then the other 3 keywords on the other dark spheres. I hate this game. But anyway, that effect's good. Pierce and drain, very powerful. Bane as well, right? Flying, like, it's just keyword soup, and it also buffs the thing. So it's like a good modal option just to have. The other part, pay 5, 10, or 1500 life, draw a card for each 500 life paid this way, right? So it's just life pay to draw cards. It is a value card. It's good in stuff like Dark Tree, right? Pay 1500, draw 3. My opponent's not dealing any damage to me anyway. Just free card advantage. So stuff like that. Dante, I mean, a lot of your stuff will have drain anyway because one of the spheres gives drain. So, I mean, you can, and just this card itself, like, you get to pick both in Dante, so you can functionally make something hit very hard and then just pay all the life that you gained away in order to generate card advantage. So, very good card. I like Dante, enters the Game of Gods. I wish I could pre-order full art playset. The arts are baller. They really are. I do really like the Fallen Angel stuff. They're gonna reword Pierce to make it just trample. I would scream. Dante's Dark Wave. J Resonators, your opponent control gain -4/-4 until end of turn, and then they gain -4/-4 for each dark sphere you control until end of turn. This is a good board wipe for Dante specifically. Again, you'd only really play it if board wipes are necessary, like at sorcery speed, but I don't think they are, so maybe you sideboard this, but otherwise I don't really think you play this. Most of the time this is going to be a neg for like -12 or higher. We'll do Dark Sphere of Azmodius first. J Ruler's game +2/+2. It's a 1-wheel Dark Sphere. It has Eternal. This is probably the one you main deck. There you go. That's my thoughts on that card. Dark Charlotte. So this is the 1-mana option for Dante. Dark Charlotte is not safe. If she dies, your turn is over, and you have no real way of like coming back from it. However, when you order Dark Charlotte, because the order is attached to the card itself, just ordering Dark Charlotte will give her 5 keyword abilities. So she has the whenever this card attacks, if it has 5 or more keyword abilities, search your deck for a card named Excalibur Fallen and play it. If she is ordered, she just has all 5. If your person's Dante. Cool. Also, if it's Odin. Not if you're Loki. And not if you're Shiva. How? So because the order gives the text to the card, the ordered card becomes a J ruler and gains the following abilities as long as this card is in your order area, blah, 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 blah. It gains all this text. Force command is a keyword ability. Enter is a keyword ability. So when you do Dark Charlotte, she will gain Dante's Enter, and she will gain Dante's Force command. She has Revolution. She will gain Swiftness. She will gain Barrier. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, should you swing with Dark Charlotte on the very first turn of the game, you will search your deck, or I guess you may. You can search your deck for an Excalibur Fallen and play it immediately, should you so choose. So that is something to note about Dark Charlotte. Again, she's very weak, she has no protection, and Dante doesn't have really like a recovery. So if you're playing against your opponent and they have some form of removal that is not light, and they kill your Dark Charlotte, you're kind of at their mercy going into the next turn. But I mean, if you get a swing off, you get to name any card, right? Because I mean, we can just move to the next page, right? There's Excalibur Fallen. Darkness, darkness, name a resonator card. They don't have to control any of the cards you name, by the way, for Excalibur Fallen. So if you're Dante, you can just name a card that you don't want your opponent to have in their hand. Pharesia and shoot her for 1k. Yep, that works. There are quite a few things that kill Dark Charlotte. Like, again, it is not... I would not consider it a safe play to do it turn 1. However, it is a potent play. It is a powerful play. It is not a safe play. Not that one. But yeah. So, I mean, if you're playing against... I mean... Carlina's very funny against order decks, because order decks have very powerful 1-drops. So one of Carlina's like best play lines against order decks, if they hit Magic Stone of the Six Ages on turn 1, is to just go turn 1 Garyon. Though Garyon's not great against Shiva, which is kind of funny. And I'll explain that when we get to Rigveda. But Dark Charlotte is a gambler's play, pretty much. Excalibur Fallen, like going off of this, you probably play 3 or 4 of this in Dante itself, though. 1, because you're ripping it off of the Charlottes, so it's just like free value. 2, the effect is just also decent, right? Like it's 2 mana, kill whatever you want, or just rip whatever you want out of your opponent's hand. So, and it's quick cast, so like it's pretty decent. It's kind of like a War Comes to the End, but for the hand. Yeah. Also the field, like it just deals with a lot of stuff. So card's pretty good. We can move on to Defeated Arena Fighters. This is like a limited bomb, right? So even if it didn't have this like mana reduction or whatever, a 10/10 for 3. That whenever it attacks your opponent discards to is pretty fucking sick. It does gain -2/-2 for each card in your opponent's hand. So like if they have 5 or more cards in hand, like it just dies. It's just DOA, good old dead on arrival. But But I mean, if it gets like one attack off, like you're kind of going straight to the races, right? So, bad and constructed, but there you go. This is 2 mana, a 6/6. Gains +2/+2 for each dark sphere, and whenever you attack, you gain life, and your opponent loses X life. This card's really bad. It doesn't do anything, doesn't gain you value, doesn't gain you tempo, isn't quick cast. It's not a good card. Secret new Loki card, there you go. Yeah, but it's Rezo only, so you can't rip their 13s or whatever. Correct. But you can rip their Perseus or other alternative cards. Lucifer. I don't know how I feel about this card. I truly don't. So, at first I didn't like this card. But it's starting to grow on me after learning that the only way to really rip dark spheres out of your, like, into play effectively is via Dante's Enter. Because this is a very good card to order, right? It blows itself up, your opponent discards a card, it blows something up on board and itself. So, like, you play your one card from hand, you shoot something in play, and then you shoot something in your opponent's hand. So you effectively 2 for 1 your opponent. You lose a card in hand, and if you have nothing in play, they lose something in play, and they lose something in hand. You also get your Dark Sphere. However, this didn't play for tempo, and a lot of the times it'll take up your order for the turn. However, I don't think you're ordering anything else at instant speed in the deck, so I think it's tempo enough, like, it's good enough to play in that sense. Also, like, the life gain and life loss. So it also functions that way. So I think you do play 4 of this in Dante. And I think that's kind of like your early game plan, is I think you're just like, hold up Darkness Will and my order, if you can. And then your opponent's like, do my thing, and you're like, Lucifer. Move to the next turn. So it's a very, like, good tempo play. I like it. I think you play 4 of it. That's about it. I think you also play it in, like, Loki and, like, other stuff like that. Like, I don't think it's just useful for Dante, right? Odin as well, in formats where you can actually spare, like, the Darkness Will, or you have more access to the Darkness Will, right? It's just, Lucifer is just a very powerful card to order on your opponent's turn in order to generate enter effects or use the flip effects. This still dies if you chase wins or anything your op does to give their things barrier, right? I believe so. Yeah, it should. Check the target at this point. If it's not legal, all effects involving it are not applied. This include both an actions referring to the information of the illegal target, effects containing other than this card's target or referencing the illegal target for exclusion purposes only. If all targets of the card or ability are illegal, the other effects are still resolved. Yeah. Yeah, so it'll still kill itself. Yeah. Good card. Moving on. Tears of Amadeus. Black 2. You may pay 1 black less if you control a J-Roller. Your opponent banishes X Resonators or X is the number of Dark Spheres you control. You're already killing their Resonators. You're already discarding their cards. You're already Excalibur Fallening their Resonators. I don't know if you're playing this card. Maybe as like a 1 of or a 2 of, just to get like the extra banish in there if they're like super Resonator heavy. But it's probably more of a sideboard card than anything else. That's really it. World of Amadeus. Put a Resonator from your grave into your hand, instant speed. You can play this without paying a cost if a J ruler you controlled was destroyed this turn. So this card got a lot better with this card. Okay. So I think this card's sweet. I think this card's really, really good. Because it just counts as whatever you want it to. It's almost like a Keep the Faith. Almost. It's less mana, but less modal. So it can get, like, your Lucifer back. Yeah, like if you Lucifer your opponent, you shoot their thing, and Lucifer, your opponent discards a card, and then you just add the Lucifer back to your hand. And then you get your Dark Sphere, or whatever. Pretty good. The other thing you can do, you don't get to play it for free if you're Odin, but if you do play this in like Odin, right? Same kind of concept. You can dump something and then add it back to your hand with World of Amadeus, right? Random shit like that. So they're just like play lines. I really like cycle back effects and stuff like that. It's free. It's 0 mana. So it's very mana efficient. So I really like this card. If I were to probably build a Dante deck, I'd have to see what else I would like put in it, but like I'd potentially play this card at 4. Alice. We know what Alice does. The additions. So Arena Expansion, Demonic World. Enter, recover all Dark Spheres you control. Dark Spheres you control become 10/10 Fallen Angels. Until the end of turn, there's still additions. And you can play it without paying its cost if you've activated God's Art. So typically what you're going to do is you're going to tap all your Dark Spheres, play your Amadeus, Revolution your Amadeus, God's Art your Amadeus, and then play Arena Expansion Demonic World, get all your things back, all your Dark Spheres back, and then swing with all of them, etc., right? That's like the whole idea behind the card. I think you play one of this card and no more. Sounds like a bad play. I think it sounds like a very good play. But only once, because you can only get it for free once. So that's where I'm at with this card. I think you try and play it as a one-of. If it's like too clunky, I could see you cutting it completely. But like, there's no other Dark Sphere recovery effect. And also just like slamming the Amadeus and your opponent being like, like, I'm gonna try and deal with that, and then you just being like, well, now here's all my balls, and then you attack them, and then they take your balls, then like they die. So I don't know. I think it's okay. We'll see how it actually plays out. Lenor's Sphaeria. I don't know how to pronounce that. This is Alice's. Non-magic stone entities your opponent controls lose all abilities during your turn. That counts the Dark Spheres. Which means they lose Eternal, which is kind of funny. It costs light if a Regalia is put into the field under your control this turn, and you can draw a card. You probably play 2 or 3 of this. It just drawing a card is pretty decent. Like, you're getting a Regalia whenever you play Alice anyway, and it's just a free play off of IU, right? So it's just functionally decent like that. If you play Bloodstone, you can Alma twice. Bloodstone? I don't know what Bloodstone is. Pretty decent card for Alice. Arena Expansion, Mimi Tribe Festival. We see this at the beginning of game effect, which means this is going in the sideboard and nowhere else. Erythropia? Yeah, no. Erythropia is only Fallen Angel rulers, unfortunately. Arena Expansion. This card has, like, an OTK with a Stone Reanimator card. I think we have 2 different Stone Reanimator cards. Being able to play it for the 3,000 or less, or 3,000 or greater attack total, it's not super hard to hit. Cards like okay. I'm not like Chamimi Edition is Stone combo again, basically, but like I don't see myself playing more of this card, because like you only want to play it for its like for free off of the condition, right? So like, but like you want more of it because it's like probably your primary win con. I'm not really sure how I feel about it, honestly. Like again, like you're playing one in the sideboard always, but like I don't know if I ever play any in the main board. But like if you're not playing any in the main board, then how good is the Stone Reanimator stuff anyway? It's like how much of it do you even put into the deck, like at that point, right? So it's a weird balancing act to try and figure out for it. It's also just, instead of just the OTK thing, it's just extra mana. You also just get to search Mimi Tribes. That's cool. Arena Expansion Sky Round. You may banish 2 machines rather than pay this card's cost. And when a machine enters the field, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put one in the hand and the rest in the grave. This also like functions better with the like freaky knights that you can have any amount of copies of because they're all machines, right? So being able to do that and play this. The other thing that's funny about these editions, these 3, not Alice's, but these 3, these arena expansions do not have Eternal, which is kind of funny. So they can be killed. Works better with more token generation. You're talking about Sky Round? Yeah, if you have like Tidor's Gimmick with the tokens and stuff like that, you can banish those in order to play it. But then you're playing more of the machines anyway in order to dump more machines, so it's kind of like the same idea. Dante. Dark Alice in Mot. I honestly forgot about this card. So it's black light, 6/6 villains. If you're playing Alice, you can treat her as if she had tails, basically. Enter, look at your opponent's hand, choose a Resonator, remove it from the game. If she's revved, you get a Darkness Regalia token, and you can look at your opponent's hand, choose a Resonator, and remove it. Or choose a non-Resonator and remove it from the game. Darkness Regalia, gain... J Resonator gains -6/-6 until end of turn. So, if your opponent has stuff with a 6/6 stat line, of which there's not a lot that people like actively play, so this would be more functioning as like a combat trick that she would have to be like revolutioned off of. She plays as a 3-for-1, right? Because you rip 2 cards from your opponent's hand and then effectively try and kill something with a 6/6 minus. So you'll get a 3-for-1. So you go +2 in value off the card. Biggest issue is she's just sorcery speed. Is the main problem. The nice part is you get to look and choose. So like you get to pick the 2 cards. The other thing is it's 2 cards. Like picking 2. I don't know if we've ever had an effect that lets us pick 2 cards. The only one I can think of would be Look of Corruption, which was 3 mana on a chant. Slapper and Dante discard more cards than she can just kill herself. She can just kill herself. That is another thing she can do. She can kill herself to get you out of Revolution if you want to play something else. That is a function she does have. So I think she's pretty good. And her being in villains, like, she's in Odin/Dante colors, so... Glint of Insight hits any number of same cards. Glint of Insight does hit any number of same cards, but you don't... You can't pick 2 different cards, basically. Like, I can be like, get rid of all of your Severing Winds, right? Like, Glint's original use. But, like, I can't be like, oh yes, get rid of your 1 Severing Winds and your 1 Lorite, right? So, like, it's more versatile than Glint was. And then grab her back from grave. Oh my fuck, we're seeing the lines. This deck sounds sick. We're gonna play it. Dark Sphereless Dante. But yeah, pretty good card. Dark Sphere of Astema, J-Release you control, gain Bane. Beatrice, Precision, Belial, Flying, Carlina, Drain. They all have Eternal. They're all the dual colors of what they are. They're all Dark Spheres. Deus Ex Machina, we know what he does. Night of Nights. Apply the Revolution abilities of target J-Resonator you control till end of turn, then trigger its Enter abilities. You can pay blue, just blue, if it targets a machine. Pretty good for stuff like Tidor to get extra turns over and over again. Good for Guinevere if, like, you rip this card off the top, right? It just allows you to get another card off the top in Fins. Other things like that. There are probably other decent Revolution effects that you could probably use. But we can find them. But pretty decent card, all in all. I like it. Rigveda, the best card Force of Will has ever printed in the entire game, full stop. So it's Naya colors, green, red, white, cancel up to 3, so you get to pick, you can cancel a spell, an activate or automatic ability, or destroy a non-magic stone entity. If you are Shiva, you get to pay 1 to choose 1, pay 2 to choose 2, or pay 3 to choose up to 3, in any color combination. Why this is the best card ever printed. I kind of talk about it because this was like the most recent spoiled card when I did my last stream to go over spoilers. So I get that it's locked to Shiva. I do understand that it is locked to Shiva. However, that is not a viable way to look at card power level in the deck that it is locked behind. Particularly because that deck can either be complete and utter ass, which means no matter what is in it, the deck is unplayable, or the deck could be absolutely god tier because of all the support that it gains, as well as the generic stuff it can play, which means it becomes tier 0, something very akin to Shahrazad. So, being relegated to a deck does not equate to card power level, effectively. So Rigveda does 3 things, one of which has only ever been printed at the mana level of it once, and not as powerful as the version Rigveda does. One of which has been printed on a body before, and 2 bodies before, but has never allowed you to target your own stuff. And the third one, which typically has never been on a card as unrestrictive as it. The only other card I can think of that is close to the destroy target non-magic stone entity effect of Rigveda would be Prideful Rule, in the sense of cost to power and effects. So, against Cog, you can pop the order and cancel the Moon Gen. That is a thing you can do. So, the biggest thing with Rigveda, cancel target spell for a single mana, right? We'll take them in. We'll take each of these effects separately. So, cancel target spell for a singular mana. We have only ever had that in Otherworld Dreams. The only other card even close to that would be Farer's Spell, which can only hit instant speed things, or Severing Winds, which was 0 mana, but your opponent had to have played another card. Otherworld Dreams also allowed your opponent to play a card of equivalent CMC or lower to whatever card you canceled with it. So Otherworld Dreams, even though it just cost 1 mana, it did not go value positive. Otherworld Dreams' primary function was it went mana positive on cancel. Rigveda will always go mana positive on cancel unless you are trying to cancel something that costs 0 mana or has an like through an alternate cost, right? Something like Virgil killing a J-Ruler, something like these arena expansions that get to be played for free, right? Outside of stuff like that, Rigveda will always play mana neutral on cancel at minimum, or mana positive on cancel most of the time. Cancel target, activate, or automatic ability. Very similar to Lorite, which is not in Standard right now. It is in Wanderer, it is a staple in Wanderer. It's very similar to Feasting, which is in Standard right now. However, Feasting is specifically a Tails, right? So same kind of thing, not every deck can use it, and it requires additions to be in play, and it does not full stop, it only requires your opponent to pay more. If you have enough additions, it is a full stop, I get that. Bear with me. The other thing about Rigveda, it can cancel your own activate and automatic abilities. This is prevalent. The main thing that this is prevalent with, that I have been waiting for a very long time, is this allows you to cancel stuff like Door of Time, effects that would cause you to lose the game that occur as an activate or automatic ability. Rigveda allows you to stop those. The only other card in the game that lets you cancel your own automatic abilities is Kaguya 3.0's J-Ruler side. There's no other card in the game besides Rigveda that lets you do that. Destroy target non-magic stone entity. It is an unrestricted single mana destruction effect for any entity, J-Ruler or otherwise. Does that stop T-Doors win the game too? It would not stop T-Doors win the game. T-Doors win the game is a continuous effect, or a replacement effect, I think. I think it says instead, so it's probably a replacement effect. Door of Time specifically says, I can just pick. Door of Time. If you do, at the end of that turn, arrow, you lose the game. There's an automatic effect that triggers, causing you to lose the game at the end of the turn. Which is why Rigveda can stop it. I guess I don't need that page anymore. So that is all the effects that it does. For one, it does stuff that the best cards in Force of Will have all done. It has the flexibility to do all those things, right? You can pick which one you want to do. And then it does it all mana efficiently, right? Every single one of those is pretty much mana efficient. Again, unless your opponent is playing stuff for 0, which there is stuff that gets played for 0, but typically everything costs 1 or more. Now, you can pay 2 to do 2 of these effects. The most prevalent thing that will occur for 2 of the effects is going to be one of the cancel effects and destroying an entity. So you get to destroy an entity and cancel a card. Now at this point, what Rigveda does for 2, you're now paying 2, even if you cancel a card that costs 1 mana, and you kill a card that costs 1 mana, you will still play mana neutral. Because your opponent had to put mana into the card they played, so again, unless it costs 0, they had to put mana into that card they played, and they had to play this other card. So Rigveda will still go mana neutral. However, now because you have selected 2 options, you've been able to do 2 things with this card, you have now gone value positive, right? So if it's an activator automatic ability, that determines how positive you're truly going, but if it's cancel a spell and destroy something, you've now gone +1 value positive off of this card. Preventing your opponent from doing stuff as well, which is better value than just drawing cards. There's also, you go value positive, you go tempo positive. You can also choose the automatic abilities and all that stuff, or if you somehow get to this point, you can choose all 3 modes as well. Which means you'll still pretty much go mana neutral, maybe mana negative, but you will have gone value positive. Okay. So, Rigveda, it's Best card ever printed. Full stop. The funniest part about Rigveda, you say hydrate, I say... Thank God my tumbler had water in it. The funniest part about Rigveda is Rigveda always costs 3, right? Its total cost is always 3. Which means third boon always cancels Rigveda, regardless of how much your opponent pays into it. Which I think is really fucking funny. We're also getting a lot more of these cards that cost 3 or more, but have alternate play cons. Again, Virgil, again, the arena expansions, stuff like that. And the power level of those cards, like, just the fact that they're 3 mana, but they have a cost reduction, makes the power level of third boon start to go up. Which to me is really funny. So, we might see more third boons being boarded, right? Third boon just cancels Rigveda. It's kind of funny. But otherwise, the only 2 decks that really play Rigveda are going to be Shiva and maybe Karlina. Those are the only 2 decks that will play this card. However, it is absurdly powerful. It is so strong. Oh my god. My brain is still boggled to this day. Why is that all the third boons right now? Do it quick. This is just Shiva. Shiva gives +2/+2. Meanwhile, Rigveda cancels Garyon against Karlina. Turn 1, 6 Sage Stone. It does not cancel Garyon if they play it, because they just Karlina got art. However, it can kill Garyon. Which is why you can't Garyon turn 1 against Shiva. Destroy it instead. Gotcha. Shoot the Mimi. So put a Mimi tribe from your hand into the field. At the next end of turn, its controller banishes it. If you're Shiva, this card gains Quick Cast, and that Resonator gains Swiftness until end of turn. Apply its Revolution abilities. Okay, so this card functionally misses timing for enter effects that are stuck under Revolution abilities. Because the card will enter the field and then Revolution effects are applied, enter effects that are stuck under Revolution will not trigger off of Shoot the Mimi. This includes Megalanica, this includes Chimimi. This card and Chimimi would have been pretty damn good, same thing with Megalanica, if it actually worked that way. So this will trigger any static Revolution effects. So if you want a Mimi Tribe's static Revolution effect, then this card's good for that. It also cheats them in at quick cast speed, for, in Megalanica's case, a cheaper mana cost. I don't think the card's great because you don't get enter effects off the Revolution. But yeah. But that, it is what it is. Like, you'll use it for maybe getting Megalanica's cheated into play. But outside of that, it's not that great of a card because the Revolution effects, you don't get enters off the Revolution. So it's pretty meh. Tales of Fantasia. This card I don't think is playable in Standard, but I think it's very good in Wander, which is kind of funny. Reveal the top X cards where X is the number of Regalia. Choose up to 1 Resonator Chant in addition and put them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your deck. If you're Alice, you get to look at double the number of Regalia, and then you choose a Resonator Chant in addition and put them into play without paying their cost. And then if you choose alternative cards, you can't play more than whatever nonsense. Which I think is really funny that that text is there, but it's not on the first part. So it's like, if it's the first part, you can pick. We're not going to worry about that. I just noticed that. I hate it here. We're throwing a Beyblade. It's definitely a kick. That's a foot. Anyway, I like this in Wander for a couple reasons. One, it lets you put into, like, you have the 0 mana Regalia in Wander, right? So you get to just, like, play all of those and then use Tales of Fantasia. So you get to kind of look at a lot more cards, which I think is really funny. The other thing that you can do with this in Wanderer, if you're going down that route, is because it lets you put into play an addition, you can play, I believe Alice's World isn't banned. I'd have to check to double check that one, but you can put into play an Alice's World for free and just take extra turns, which I love taking extra turns personally. So I think that's cool. Also playing like a chant and a resonator in addition to playing an Alice's World is kind of great. I would probably play this card if it just searched Alice's World, but here we are, getting that and two other things, so that's neat. But yeah, that's really all I have to say about Tales of Phantasia. Don't think you play it in New Frontiers, but yeah, I'm pretty sure you play it in Wanderer. It's funny in Wanderer, at least. Light of the Unknown. I've had arguments about this card. Some people say it's playable in Feathmouge. I kind of agree, kind of disagree. Part of the issue with it, so part of the issue with it is the naming the card right, and that you can only play the will for things that share a name with the named card. The thing the reason it's fine is because Priscia is already stacking your deck with her like scrying type effect or 4C. So like your Priscia is kind of filtering your Light of the Unknowns. And then also Arthur, if you're playing that in the deck, can also facilitate Light of the Unknown plays. And you can play this off of Lycion. However, it is just a 1-for-1. You kind of already have a bunch of 1-for-1s. So I don't really know if that's like what you're trying to do. In Machina, I don't really like it. I mean, like, you get the 3 will to play, like, you can play something in like a turn earlier, and like you know what the top card of your deck is, but like, I don't know, I feel like you can be doing better things. Like, I don't think you need to just put one card from your hand into the top, or from the top of your deck into your hand. But yeah, so it's okay. Use Alice spell to cheat in Altea, Nation of Dark Magics, and Wanderer. Free chance each turn. Oh yeah, Altea, the OG Lycion. I don't even remember what that card does, but Power of Zeus. This is a combat trick. I've been over this. It's worded very poorly. Combat tricks are typically very bad in general. This also costs 2. Any good combat trick should cost 1. Card's bad. 7 Deadly Sins. So 3 mana, alternate win con, Grixis colors, red, blue, black. Choose 1, put a dark sphere from grave or removed area into the field. This is if your opponent deals with them somehow. Put a darkness resonator from your hand into the field. You can cheat on Amadeus's. Put target darkness resonator from your graveyard into the field. Same thing, you can cheat on Amadeus's. Pretty decent all around. If you are Dante, you can choose up to 3. And then if you control Amadeus, Dark Charlotte, Alternative, and 5 Dark Spheres with different names, you win the game. 7 Deadly Sins, right? Just like a fun little gimmick, other win con. Good combat tricks should cost 0. My machines, hell yeah. Good combat tricks cost 1. They've always cost 1. We've just gone out of using combat tricks. We haven't used combat tricks in a very long time. But combat tricks have always cost 1. But yeah, alternate win cons are fun. Well, will the alt win condition ever happen? Potentially. I could see it happening. I mean, a lot of the thing... Part of it is if I am playing Dante and I get a free Dark Sphere, a Darkness Resonator, and another Darkness Resonator, I'm probably already winning the game anyway because of the power of the Resonators that Dante plays. Like, if I get 2 Amadeuses, like if this fully resolves and I get 2 Amadeuses, you just discarded 4 cards. And I have 2 30/30s. That's pretty hard to come back from. But I'm sure it will happen sometime, right? Like, you only need 4 Dark Spheres in play and 1, like, randomly dead in order to play this and win the game, right? An Amadeus and Charlotte, because it'll check on resolution if you have all 5, or all 7. In Wander, it's even more nuts. Yeah, I mean, they're even better Darkness Resonators. You get to pull from a larger pool. Yeah. Alright. Last card, Virgilius Chasing Darkness. This card gains +2/+2 for each non-magic stone, non-J resonator entity your opponent controls. So like Dark Spheres. Swiftness, J resonators you control gain +0/+1, and then he makes everything shoot itself, so he makes all your stuff not kill itself, and then he kills everything. Or at least that's what he attempts to do. Not a great card. We've already seen how we kind of have like another board wipe. This is also tacked on to an enter, and it's also at sorcery speed. So we've kind of already talked about that. He's also in dual color. Dual color is really bad right now. Like, the effect has to be like really decent. Like, you would play it on like turn 4 or later in order to be like a dual color card. And I just think the card's like too one-dimensional, is like kind of like a beat stick. So not a fan personally. I thought he was gonna be like Dark Alice and be like, you can play him in Dante, and he was gonna have some kind of like banish Dark Spheres effect in order to facilitate the 7 Deadly Sins card, because there's no real way to get them into your grave outside of like discarding them, I guess. But yeah. Anyway, those are all my thoughts on every single card. We went over the whole set. It's been 2 hours and 45 minutes. I like the set. I think the set's power level is really good. I think all the new rulers are really cool, and the decks that'll come out with them are going to be cool. I look forward to seeing people at the GPs that are coming up. We have 2 back-to-back weekends, first weekend of March and second weekend of March. I will be head judging both of them, I believe. So I will be doing those. I plan on making... I'm going to plan on making a top 10 for this set as well. I'm also probably going to do another tier list. A meta prediction tier list, yeah. For going into this as well. And then I want to also try and make a couple videos with the new rulers for like deck lists that I think that would be interesting in, or for older rulers, what kind of cards you can like add to like the decks, right? Like, for example, one would be like Tea Party Before the Decisive Battle can be added to like Excalibur Genesis, like Heroes Faria, in order to play like Lenneths at instant speed, right? Like, that's kind of cool. So just like fun stuff like that. But we shall see. But anyway, thank you all so much for coming in to watch. I will be uploading this to YouTube, so if you're on YouTube, thank you so much for staying around for almost 3 hours, my god. And then I hope to see you all in the future. Have a great rest of your night.